It is 7 p.m. I would like to call our meeting to order, please. Are you guys good, or do you need more time? I'll pass it down. Would everyone who is able please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? We will now have our land acknowledgement read by Director Bates.
Good evening. On behalf of this board and the Cherry Creek School District, I would like to acknowledge that this meeting is being held on the ancestral and unceded lands of the Cheyenne, Arapaho, Ute, Osheti-Shekowee people who stewarded it for generations. The Osheti-Shekowee includes 7 bands, so I would also like to recognize that over 40 additional tribal nations likely use this area for trade, ceremonies, and social gatherings.
Thank you, Director Bates. I would like to call for a motion to approve the agenda for the February 12th, 2024 regular Special Board of Education meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Allen.
Aye.
Bates.
Aye.
Egan. Garland.
Aye.
Knowles.
Aye.
I would like to call for a motion to approve the minutes for the January 8th, 2024 regular Board of Education meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Allen.
Aye.
Bates.
Aye.
Egan. Garland.
Aye.
Knowles.
Aye.
Motion carries. I would like to call for a motion to approve the minutes for the January 17th, 2024 Special Board of Education meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Allen.
Aye.
Bates. Bates.
Aye.
Egan. Aye. Garland.
Aye.
Knowles.
Aye.
I would like to call for a motion to approve the minutes for the January 26th, 2024 Special Board of Education meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Allen.
Aye.
Bates.
Aye.
Egan. Garland. Knowles.
Aye.
Motion carries. It is at this time that we will have reports from our Board of Directors. Director Bates, would you please kick us off this evening?
Thank you and good evening. And thank you to Principal Stewart and Laredo Middle School for hosting us. And thank you to our guests for joining us here tonight. First off, I'd like to thank everyone that participated in the January Food and Personal Hygiene Supply Drive in honor of the Board of Education. My colleagues and I enjoyed collecting donations and visiting school-based pantries. As the cost of living continues to rise, the need of these pantries continues to rise. As of February 1st, 2024, CCSD has 844 McKinney-Vento identified students. 53 of these students are unaccompanied homeless youth. McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act is the primary piece of legislation related to the education of children and youth experiencing homelessness. Specific provisions ensure the enrollment, accessibility, and educational stability for students lacking a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. Every corner of our district is touched by homelessness. This is one reason why we firmly believe in the school-based food pantries as well as the school-based health centers that we now have on 3 campuses. This month, Cherokee Trail Feeder will be collecting items to fill the pantries in honor of our Superintendent's Student Advisory Council. The need is real. We are asking this month for items such as toiletries, household goods, anything that would help set up a family and help them. Donations, big or small, are always welcome and appreciated. Recently, the All-Volunteer Medical Advisory Committee met. The student health group reported on the work being done to serve our unhoused students and newcomers from other countries. The Medicaid grant team presented that they are in the process of developing its 5-year plan to submit to the state later in the spring. And finally, the initial data from the social emotional screener was presented, and you will hear more about that later this evening. I would like to thank this group of medical professionals for their service and dedication to the students of Cherry Creek Schools. In the month of January, Cherokee Trail High School's Be Kind Club kicked off a 21-day kindness challenge. Instead of a New Year's resolutions, they encouraged everyone to participate by creating a habit of spreading kindness. Why a 21-day challenge? Because it has been proven that it takes 21 days to form or break a habit. Something as simple as a smile, holding a door, spending extra time with a family member can make a person's day. Not only does this make the other person feel good, but it also makes you feel good. This group has grown significantly since its inception in 2018. Not only do they participate in supporting events around CT and our own district, they also have recently sent $2,000 to a high school in Lahaina, Hawaii, where wildfires destroyed their school. The money there will be used to buy graduation caps and gowns for the students. If you would like to support the Be Kind Club, you can see more information on the school's website. And finally, I hope you will take the time this week to randomly be kind. Thank you, and this concludes my comments.
Thank you, Director Bates. Director Egan?
Good evening. We appreciate Laredo Middle School and Principal Joe Stewart for hosting us here, and as always, the efforts of our safety, security, and technology teams preparing for these meetings. The Cherry Creek School District is currently enrolling incoming preschools and kindergartners for the 2024-2025 school year. Please visit the district admissions webpage for more information. And the CCIC application is also open for district students who will be in 10th, 11th, or 12th grade during the 2024-2025 school year. As a reminder, the CCIC offers career and technical education courses in 8 pathways: aerospace manufacturing, health and wellness, infrastructure engineering, hospitality and tourism, transportation, automotive and aviation, business services, IT and STEAM, and future educator. The CCIC also hosted their Skills Challenge over the weekend. You can find more information about this exciting event and registration options on the CCIC website. Last week was School Counselor Appreciation Week. Thank you to our school counselors for the incredible work they do every day in supporting our students. It was an honor to attend the Exceptional Volunteers Recognition Reception in January. We are so fortunate to have the many volunteers we do lending their time, resources, and energy to making this district great. I was pleased to attend the 6th Annual Hispanic Serving Institutions, Historically Black Colleges and Universities, and Native American Serving Non-Tribal Institutions College Fair last week. The January PASS meeting was held at Grandview High School and began with 4 student leaders presenting their high school experiences as students of color. We also acknowledge and honor Lunar New Year and Black History Month. Please join February's PASS meeting at Smoky Hill High School for a presentation from the Human Resources team on this year's hiring and retention data for teachers of color. I am honored to be the board representative for the Cherry Creek Schools Foundation, which supports our students by funding classroom grants, mental health support, and emergency relief, thanks to the generosity of our community. The foundation is holding its annual Elevate Gala, which will raise money for these important projects on Thursday, March 28, 2024. Tickets are on sale now at the foundation's website, ccsdfoundation.org. This event will feature student performances, a live and silent auction, and other ways to support Cherry Creek School students. The Colorado General Assembly is currently in session. Last week, I attended a day at the Capitol with my colleagues on the Colorado Association of School Boards. These conversations with our legislators and sharing the stories of how our local community addresses the challenges of educating Colorado students are critical for our legislators to hear. I encourage you to visit the state capitol during this 120-day session to watch the legislative process and visit with legislators about your priorities. National Letter of Intent Day was February 7th, with student athletes signing their intentions for athletic and academic college endeavors. Seniors and their families enjoyed the special ceremonies at our high schools. As the parent of a student involved in one of these ceremonies a few years ago, I can attest to the excitement and pride behind these celebrations. More than 200 students recently participated in the Mouth Counts Denver Metro Chapter competition, including 7 Cherry Creek School District schools: Challenge, Campus, West, Infinity, Falcon Creek, Sky Vista, and Cherry Creek Academy. And students at Greenwood Elementary finished a project-based learning presentation to multiple grades about planning a road trip to somewhere in the U.S., and learning facts about the state, travel, and how to present to multiple ages in the process. Congratulations to the Cherry Creek High School girls swim and dive team for winning their 4th straight state championship. Power Week began today in district high schools, and at Cherry Creek High School, there is a school-wide effort underway to raise money for Bags of Fun, an organization that provides backpacks filled with toys, games, books, and other enjoyment for children hospitalized with illnesses. This is a whole week of fun events, restaurant nights, and dress-up days. Let the Lunar New Year inspire you to embrace a fresh start, and may it be filled with happiness and love. This concludes my comments.
Thank you, Director Egan. Director Allen.
Thank you and good evening. For many of us in this room, our days as students in the classroom are over. Yet we are lifelong learners. As part of my commitment to lifelong learning and in recognition of Black History Month, I took some time to research contributions to our recent Colorado history by some remarkable Black women. I share with you 2 brief stories. Dr. Justina Ford, a pioneering African-American physician, overcame barriers to practice medicine in the Five Points area of Denver during the early 20th century. Her tireless efforts saved lives and inspired future generations of Black medical professionals in our state. Carlotta Walls Lanier is one of the Little Rock Nine, a group of 9 African-American students who, in 1957, desegregated Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas. After moving to Colorado, Ms. Lanier earned a BS from Colorado State College in 1968. Among many other things, Ms. Lanier is the president of the Little Rock Nine Foundation, a scholarship organization dedicated to ensuring equal access to education for African Americans. By celebrating Black History Month, we honor pioneers like Dr. Ford and Ms. Lanier. We teach our students that their history matters. We foster understanding, and we celebrate diversity. Thank you for supporting these celebrations in our schools. This evening, I also take time to reflect on the importance of educational resources and access to overcoming racism, discrimination, and poverty in all walks of life, and to create opportunities and open doors for all of our children. When Dr. Martin Luther King accepted the John Dewey Award from the United Federation of Teachers in 1964, he spoke of education being a battleground in the freedom struggle. The richest nation on earth has never allocated enough resources to build sufficient schools, to compensate adequately its teachers, and to surround them with the prestige of our work justifies. King added, "We squandered funds on highways, on the frantic pursuit of recreation, on the overabundance of overkill armament, but we pauperize education." As a board, we are responsible for providing adequate and direct means for keeping local citizenry informed, and school funding is often on the forefront of our discussions. Over the past 15 years, Colorado lawmakers engaged in its own pauperization of education by channeling over $10 billion from schools to other priorities. This year, Governor Polis and our lawmakers hope to stop diverting money from schools to fully fund the state's obligation. It is important to understand that the plan to fully fund education means that we will be funding our schools at 1989 levels when adjusted for inflation. That means if schools looked and operated the way they did 30 years ago, our schools would be fully funded. So much has changed since 1989. Education is not a set it and forget it enterprise. As we recognize that the one-size-fits-all approach does not work for most, we expand pathways for our students through our career and technical education programs, our Cherry Creek Innovation Campus, and the numerous opportunities to earn college credit through our AP classes, our IB program, and our concurrent enrollment opportunities. The cost of fully funding education in 1989 did not include the vast majority of these opportunities for engagement and advancement. Our schools, beginning at elementary school, are full of technology and computer software. Technology is no longer a luxury. It plays a crucial role in preparing our students for college, career, and life. Technology is also expensive. Along with technology and software costs comes the increased associated costs with cyber-based security threats and prevention. These costs would not have been contemplated under funding education in 1989. And in 1989, the Columbine Massacre and the countless number of school shootings that continue to follow were unfathomable. School safety costs have risen dramatically, with schools requiring security personnel, secure entries, special locks, and red bags, to name just a few. A fully funded 1989 education did not include those critical expenses. Those are just a few examples of line items that would not be considered in a 1989 budget. While the list is long, my time is short. So what does a promise of fully funding education actually mean when we are looking at how much it costs to run a school district in 1989? 2024 school costs demand full funding at 2024 levels. We must reevaluate our commitment to the importance of our local community schools, which are critical to the success of our next generations and to our democracy. There's no excuse for our decision to deprioritize and devalue the importance of funding public education. Please reach out to our lawmakers and ask them to make our schools and our children their top priority. Just as in 1964, access to education and educational funding breaks down barriers and creates opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Allen. Director Knowles.
Thank you, and thank you to Laredo and Principal Stewart for hosting us tonight, and thank you also to Security and Technology for all the work that you do. I also want to appreciate everyone who's come here tonight and appreciate the other comments of my board directors. I have no additional comments to make tonight.
Thank you, Director Knowles. Good evening, and thank you to Mr. Stewart and the Laredo community for hosting us. I want to give a special shout out to this community for their tremendous growth in academic data. And I'm proud to represent this district. I'm excited to finally begin to be able to visit my schools within our district. At Sunrise Elementary, where Miss Mandy Sheets is the principal, she and her team have leaned into the PBIS program and focused on our increased mental health supports and have decreased negative discipline referrals by over 85% from last year. In turn, the school has also experienced tremendous academic data growth. One program to highlight is the gym teachers program of the gym shoe library for his PE classes. This program, which was funded by the Cherry Creek Schools Foundation, allows students who forget their tennis shoes for whatever reason to simply borrow a pair from the shoe library. At our district's most recent long-range planning committee, parents discussed the issues of populations at schools in the south reaches of our district. Altitude, one of our newer schools, is already bursting at the seams. Its enrollment is now hovering around 1,000 students. Meanwhile, Woodland, which is also a new school, hovers around 450. The Long Range Committee has reviewed builder and development plans in the area and will submit information to the board regarding potential boundary changes for the housing subdivisions in the area. Area families were given the opportunity over 2 nights to tour Woodland and visit with the teachers and Principal Burbani and to review and give input on possible boundary changes. The feedback of the community will be discussed by the long-range community and presented to the board. We know change is hard, but overpopulated schools are even harder for teachers, students, staff, and resources. We honor the voices of our community and will arrive at a decision that is best for students, family, and our staff. In Cherry Creek, we celebrate all learners. On Saturday, January 27th, I had the opportunity to judge our district's annual spelling bee. This year's competition lasted for over 7 rounds. 8th grader Nellie Landis took top honors in this year's event and will move forward to the state competition. We wish her the best of luck. As a part of our Universal Lunch program, our counts for students participating in this program have increased by over 33%. On a daily basis, our district has served approximately 35,000 lunches per day. Because of this, we are looking to purchase additional facilities to help with the overflow. Finally, I really enjoy being a part of this district. I've had the opportunity to attend a myriad of sports, family evening activities, and fundraising nights. It is a joy to interact with families and students. I look forward to continue to visit with schools in our community so that I may better serve our district. That concludes my comments. And now we will have comments from our students. And first up is, let me see here. First up is from Sagebrush, Miss Tania Navarez Dominguez.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Tania Navarez Domínguez. He ido a las escuelas de Cherry Creek desde preescolar. Actualmente soy estudiante de 5º grado en la escuela primaria de Sagebrush. Durante los últimos 7 años he visto la importancia que son las relaciones, la mentalidad de crecimiento, la equidad, el compromiso en el aprendizaje. Good evening, my name is Tania Navarez Dominguez. I have gone to Cherry Creek School since preschool. I'm currently a 5th grade student at Sagebrush Elementary. During the past 7 years, I have seen how important relationships, a growth mindset, equity, and engagement are in learning. First, I have made several reliable relationships with not only students, but with teachers too. In 4th and 5th grade, I have trusted many talented teachers with everything. They have increased my growth mindset by challenging me as a learner through experiences like field trips to the Denver Art Museum, cultural night. Next, a school with no equity could be stressful and overwhelming for students. My teachers have demonstrated equity by working with students who don't understand until they're caught up. I like that because getting left behind can be overwhelming. Finally, teachers are always looking for engagement of their students through videos and music. In 5th grade, they have tried their best to challenge students and help them think in different and efficient ways. That has taught me how to be more efficient, able to work, and able to complete work on time. I think Sagebrush is a one-of-a-kind school because of the reliable relationships, growth mindset, equity, and engagement of students in learning. I thank you for your time.
Gracias. Hablo un poquito español. But thank you for sharing in both languages. We know that students who are able to speak multiple languages, that's a different level of genius, and being able to to possess that and to have those skills are really important for life and for the workforce. So you talked about how teachers at your school helped other students to get caught up. Can you share a little bit more about that, please?
Well, since every student, every person is at a different level, for example, in my class, there are some students that can be behind or are in advanced, I think, and for the students that are behind, the teachers help them by giving them extra work, or they help, they stay with them until they can understand the subject, until they've caught up with other students.
Thank you for sharing that. And then you talked about how the teachers also work to promote equity in the school. How did the students work together to promote equity?
Well, they all work together, help them, and they help them, for example, teachers, they also help students to, like help them help them understand the subject. Students could also do that by showing them how to do this strategy. Like my friend he taught me how to do this strategy to in math to help me grow and challenge me. He also helps me think in different ways.
Thank you for sharing. And who are your special guests that you brought with you today?
That's my brother Edwin. I like him a lot. He's been with me since day one. and then my dad. He doesn't understand that much English, but he's there with me.
Yes, but I'm sure he understood the first part of your speech, and that's important for you and your family. But thank you for sharing with us, and we wish you best of luck at Sagebrush.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next student is Chloe Riley from Sunrise.
Sunrise has been a very special place to me since I was in kindergarten. The teachers are amazing. Every teacher I've had has been great. School can be challenging, but the teachers push us to be our best and give us lots of fun support. They notice things we do and reward us when we do well and when we make good choices. We offer different clubs and activities, one of them being leadership. Leadership is new to Sunrise this year. Miss Dudley is our leading teacher and always has a lot of fun things to do. We get to problem solve and decide what is best for all the kids. The leadership group gets to vote on things that all the kids in leadership get to decide. We do news videos and remind the school about RISE. RISE is responsibility, I is for integrity, S is for safety, and E is for effort. I love leadership because we get to make choices for the school as a team. There has been changes from this year to last year. Kids don't run in the hall, so it's safer. Kids don't fight as much. We also have a new principal. She changes a lot of rules and listens to the students' ideas. She also planned a lot of field trips with the teachers. School is the same as when I was in kindergarten, but now it's more exciting with new things to look forward to. What makes me happy to be a Sunrise Eagle is that I get to be a part of the best community, in my opinion, and that the teachers are super giving and do the most for us.
Thank you for sharing. Now, you talked about how some of the teachers support you all to be better students. Can you give an example of something that you enjoy or some of the supports that the teachers offer?
Like if we don't really understand a math problem, they'll explain more details to us and what we might not understand, but we'll end up getting the point of it.
And you talked about how the kids don't run in the halls anymore. How is that helpful for your school? Excuse me.
Not running in the hall is not the best choice or option to do because kids can trip and fall if their shoe is untied and stuff like that.
Now, are you a part of the leadership committee with Miss Dudley?
Yeah.
Now, what are some of the things that you all have done at your school?
We have now we're doing candygrams and selling them to people during the school day and stuff like that. And we have made videos for the school for the younger kids, so they know what to do instead of doing the opposite of what they're not supposed to do.
Perfect. So you guys are kind of doing social media within your school to help students adjust.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. So, and who are your special guests that you have with us today?
I brought my mom and my little sister.
Your mom and your little sister. Hi, mom and little sister. Well, thank you for sharing with us this evening, and good luck to you at Sunrise.
Thank you.
Our next student is Kayleen Simmons, and she's an 8th grader at Laredo.
This is very loud, but hello everyone. I'm Kayleen Simmons, an 8th grader here at Laredo. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you today about my experiences and the core values that have shaped my journey through middle school. Middle school, as defined by textbooks, is a transitional period for students spanning grades 6 to 8, preparing us for the challenges of high school. However, it encompasses much more than just academics. It includes our behavior and emotions. Today, I want to share how my middle school experience reflects the 3 core values of our school: relationship building, growth mindset, and equity, grounded in my Christian faith and relationship with Jesus. Behavior is a crucial component of our middle school experience, and relationship building is a crucial aspect of any educational institution. When I entered middle school, my primary focus was fitting in and making friends. Unfortunately, I initially associated with the wrong crowd, engaging in negative behaviors and that did not reflect the positive relationship that our school encourages. However, my perspective shifted when I faced the consequences of my actions. I learned that true relationships are built on trust, respect, and empathy. Through this lesson, I understood the importance of surrounding myself with individuals who inspire me to be a better person. This transformation was guided by my Christian faith. In a moment of loneliness, I turned to my relationship with Jesus Christ, understanding that his sacrifice on the cross was an expression of unconditional love. I found peace and strength. The teaching of Jesus influenced the way I approach relationships, emphasizing forgiveness, compassion, and kindness. Striving for academic excellence is not just about grades, it's about fostering a growth mindset towards learning. In 7th grade, I found myself in a situation where I felt lonely and lost without my previous friends in any of my classes. It was during this challenging time I turned to my faith, realizing that I had potential for positive change. Understanding the concept of growth mindset, I embraced the ideas that my abilities and intelligence could be developed with dedication and hard work. This shift in mindset not only changed my attitude towards people, but also influenced my overall perspective on life. Lastly, let's talk about equity. Middle school can be a diverse landscape filled with different backgrounds, experiences, and challenges. Abraham Lincoln once said, "I do not like that person. I must get to know them better." My journey taught me that everyone deserves an equal opportunity to learn, grow, and succeed, regardless of past mistakes or misjudgments. Every individual has potential for positive transformation. Our school community must foster an environment where each student is treated equitably, with understanding that we all have unique strengths and areas for growth. Overall, middle school is not just about grades, it's about emotions, relationships, and personal growth. By embracing relationship building, growth mindset, and equity, grounded in my Christian faith and relationship with Jesus, I've navigated through challenges and emerged with a transformed perspective. Middle school with the right mindset becomes a place where we not only learn from textbooks, but also from our experiences and relationships with peers and faculty, molding us into well-rounded individuals ready to face the future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for sharing with us, and I especially appreciate that you feel comfortable sharing about your faith. As we talk about whole well-being, it's important for every student to show up as they are, and so we appreciate that Laredo has provided that community for you. You talked about how you were making bad decisions and hanging out with the wrong group. Was there anyone in the school that helped you to turn? I know you talked about your faith being an influence. Did anyone at school help you to turn that around?
My bad influences?
No, yes, to help you choose differently with your to make positive choices.
Yeah, it was. We're not friends anymore, but
that's a choice too.
She would always like take me to church, and she would always just be all bubbly and nice with me, and I think that just helped me like realize that wow, if somebody can be this nice to me, then like a God can be this nice to me, and a Jesus who loves me and died on the cross for me can be this nice to me. And I just wanted to reflect that to other people. And I think that's just what made me what I am today.
Thank you. And then do you have a favorite class at school?
No, not really. Yeah, I guess. Like, it's a class that I like. I like the subject.
What's the subject?
Science.
Oh, cool. So do you have any plans to use this science in the future?
Yes, ma'am.
And what would you like to do with that?
Well, I want to be a nurse, so science is part of nursing.
Sure. Now, do you care to share what guest you brought with you this evening?
Yes, I care to share. My mom came.
Hi, Mom. Well, thank you, Kayleen, and we appreciate your perseverance in turning around and, again, being able to show up as your whole self. That's important. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And our next student speaker is Miguel Cisneros, who's a 12th grader at Smoky Hill.
Dear members of the board, I am honored to have been chosen to represent the Smoky Hill community as I share my gratitude for the opportunity of attending Smoky Hill, which ultimately shaped what I will always remember as my high school experience. Growing up as the son of a teacher, I was immersed in an environment where learning was all around me. This upbringing instilled in me a great appreciation for education and the transformative powers of dedicated educators, especially those in the Cherry Creek School District that I have had the privilege of learning from. Beyond the classroom, my participation in sports like lacrosse and soccer taught me invaluable lessons in teamwork, discipline, and resilience. On the field, I learned the importance of collaboration, communication, and perseverance, skills that have translated seamlessly into leadership roles within my community, like being able to represent each of these sports as a captain. These challenges and experiences I have gone through in sports with my fellow teammates have helped me build meaningful and strong connections with a diverse group of students from my community who I now can rely on as positive friends. Moreover, my involvement in clubs such as student government, DECA, National Honor Society, and the Superintendent's Advisor Group have provided me with platforms to hone my leadership skills and make meaningful connections. I am extremely grateful for these opportunities that the district and Smoky Hill has given me to grow as an individual, and believe that these programs have helped shape my high school experience in a meaningful way. Furthermore, these extracurricular activities have not only fostered leadership skills, but have also facilitated the formation of lifelong friendships. Whether on the field, in the classroom, or at club meetings, I have had the privilege of forging deep connections with like-minded individuals who share my passion for learning and personal growth. These friendships have provided me with a support system, encouragement, and connections that have enriched my educational experience as much as any teenager could hope for. As I reflect on my journey thus far, I am grateful for the opportunities afforded to me through my involvement in sports, clubs, and my upbringing as the son of a teacher. These experiences have not only shaped me into the leader I am today, but have also surrounded me with a network of friends who inspire, challenge, and uplift me. When I arrived at Smoky Hill as a scared freshman during the pandemic, I could never imagine becoming the outgoing and social person I am today. However, now thanks to all of the clubs and sports I did and the confidence and leadership it instilled in me, I was able to participate in the Mr. Smoky Hill competition this year, where I lip-synced, danced, and got interviewed in front of my whole school while wearing a child's blue Dorothy from the Wizard of Oz dress. I never would have been comfortable enough to do this without the values and lessons I learned from my experiences in high school. As we continue to strive for excellence in education, let us recognize the significance of providing students with diverse experiences that foster leadership development, friendship, and personal growth. Together, let us cultivate an environment where every student has the opportunity to thrive academically, socially, and personally. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Miguel. You did an excellent job.
Thank you.
Now I'd like for you to recreate that Mr. Smoky Hill performance. I'm just kidding. But what is an example when you were a team captain on either of your sports that you had to kind of rally or maybe help your team to not lose their cool or something to that effect?
I think for both sports of soccer and lacrosse, we have a past of sort of feeling like underdogs and sort of feeling like once we're down, maybe we're out of the game. But I think me and the other co-captains this year, we tried to instill like a new mindset for Smoky Hill and say that we're not going to be the people that they can beat up on, and we're going to be the team that's going to surprise them and beat them.
I love to hear that. Also, with the superintendent's advisory group, we know that Mr. Smith is a part of that. Would you care to share anything about Mr. Smith that you learned in the advisory group?
I've enjoyed being a part of the superintendent advisory group, and Mr. Smith seems to be helping us and is providing us with a lot of opportunities to be able to have a voice with a lot of different groups of people at our school, from each school in the district, and we're allowed to converse with the higher-ups from the district, so I like that.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Now, what have you worked on in DECA?
In DECA, I've done it for 2 years, and I'm a state qualifier last year for Principles of Business Management, and this year I'm in a team event for Financial Services.
Oh, cool. Now, what are your plans after graduation this year?
After graduation, I'm not sure what college yet, but I plan to study finance wherever I go.
Oh, cool. Maybe you'll be our next CFO in about 10 years or so.
Yeah, hopefully.
Well, did you have any special guests that came to join you this evening?
Yeah, tonight I came with my mom, my old Spanish teacher, Mr. Cohen, my student government teacher, and my principal, Mr. Bala. Okay,
yes. Hey, everybody. Well, thank you, and thank you for all you do, and we look forward to seeing you in the next few years as a member of our finance team here with Cherry Creek School District.
Thank you.
And next up, we'll have comments from Superintendent Smith.
It's nothing like always following the kids, right? So amazing work. Tania, thank you. Thank you for showing who you are. Thank you for being yourself. I looked over when you introduced your brother. He was grinning ear to ear, smiling at you, so proud. So I'm glad he supports you as well. And thanks for talking about the importance of equity, because it's incredibly important that we understand who we teach, what makes people have passion, what makes people excited to learn. So thank you for not only having teachers do that for you, but thank you for being willing to have classmates push you and extend your thinking, and I'm sure that you do that for others. So thank you for being a model and a leader, so I appreciate that. Chloe, how's Miss Sheets treating you? Good to hear. I saw her give you a big hug, so I'm sure she's proud, as your mother and your little sister are. So thank you for being a leader inside of the school. I think that's incredibly important, being able to be a thought partner with your classmates and then really doing positive things for your school. It takes a lot to do that. It's not easy. So I appreciate you putting yourself out there, having conversations with kids who are running in the hallway, telling them to do the right thing, right? And I'm excited about what other field trip opportunities you may get. So kudos to you. Kayleen, so a couple of different things. Thank you for sharing your faith with us. I think one of the most important pieces about having a strong faith is realizing that you're never, ever alone, that there's always something or someone looking out for you, and it may not be the exact direction you want to go, but it's part of the plan for you. So thank you for being honest and sharing that sometimes you were interacting with people who maybe didn't take you on the journey that you wanted to. And it's good to learn that now, because it's important that you surround yourself with people who are going to bring you up, not tear you down. And that's a skill not everybody has. So I appreciate that you've recognized that early. Same with talking about the excellence of learning, right? It's not just sitting in a class and regurgitating information that was given to you. It's truly about learning and the passion for learning. So I'm sure that as you continue your journey as a nurse, that same passion is going to be excited. And that's our chief health officer right there. So I want you to make sure you introduce yourself to her, so when you're done with nursing, you can come back and work for us, just like Miguel is once he graduates from college. All right. So, and then again, also that piece of equity. I agree with you with the quote that you shared. Sometimes it's the ignorance of not knowing that makes us nervous or afraid. So the importance of getting to know everyone is critical in us getting along. So thank you for sharing that wisdom with us as well. Miguel, thank you, buddy. I'm going to miss you. So thanks for being part of the Superintendent's Advisory Council. The way you and your peers push my thinking, the way you help me think of different ways to help service the students in this district is, I just can't even name how important that is for me and for my district leadership team. How's your PSA coming? All right. So this year, our student Superintendent's Advisory Council had the opportunity to do public service announcements. So from reckless driving to drug and alcohol abuse to suicide prevention. So this is coming from the mouths of our students to help support each other, to help support our school, help support our families. So really putting themselves out there and truly allowing their voice to be heard in our community. So thank you, Miguel, and good luck. And I tease you, but I kind of don't tease you. I'm right alongside Miss Garland. So, you know, if we need to find a spot for you, we will. All right, good luck. So I'm going to keep my comments pretty brief. I know we've recognized that it's Black History Month, but I think we've forgotten to recognize one specific person. Miss Garland, thank you for being the first Black president on the Board of Education in the Cherry Creek School District, man or woman. So we appreciate your leadership and the leadership that will come from the model that you give our young women. So thank you, I appreciate that. One person who doesn't get a shout out very often, Wayne, can you put your hand up there for me, buddy? So this is the individual and his team who come and set up chairs and set all the different pieces up. So Wayne, thank you for everything you do and staying late for us. We appreciate it. I also want to recognize the Lunar New Year and the Year of the Dragon and making sure that we understand the cultures. And we thank you for sharing your culture with us tonight. So we appreciate you. And that's an awesome shirt, by the way, my friend. And then lastly, I do want to say this is Random Acts of Kindness Week. So please take some time to just do something kind. I had the opportunity to do a video today and really just share that the cool part about being nice is it's free. And all it takes is a smile. And you can change somebody's day or their week, because when you smile at them and you provide a random act of kindness, they feel seen, they feel valued, and they feel part of this system. And sometimes they don't. And you never know what a little smile or a pat in the back can do for somebody during the day. So again, thank you for taking care of one another. And then lastly, we have a cool thing coming up called All-Star Awards, where we recognize people from across the district for the amazing things that they do and the contributions that they give the Cherry Creek School District. And my All-Star is sitting right down there at the end of the table, Miss Jinsey Mansfield, who makes sure that I get to go where I'm supposed to go every day, and she puts up with me. So thank you, Jinsey. Congratulations on being an All-Star. And then I'll end with this. So I wasn't able to attend the January board meeting as I needed to be with my family going through a crisis. And in certain different environments, we talk the talk of taking care of family first, but we don't necessarily always walk the walk. So I want to thank the Board of Education for allowing me to be where I needed to be last month. And that doesn't always happen. So thank you, Board of Education, for being that model for us so that I can share that with our colleagues as well. So that concludes my comments. So our presentation tonight is on mental health. So if I can get our mental health team to come on down. They do a ton of great work across the district, and I'm excited for them to have the opportunity to share with you all the amazing things that are happening in the Cherry Creek School District. Thank you for our students. Have a great night.
Good evening. I'm Steve Naderveld. I'm the Director of Mental Health for Cherry Creek Schools. And I'm going to introduce Diana Rarick. She's our Social Emotional Learning Coordinator. And Jay McQueen, our Assistant Director of Mental Health. Thank you to the Board of Education for letting us present tonight. I'm going to kick us off with just a quick kind of overview at a high level of what our mental health services look like. I think it's helpful to understand that mental health in a school system is different than what you think of when you think of a mental health provider in, say, an outpatient program or in a hospital setting. We focus much more on learning and access to learning. We aren't really considered as therapists as we would be if we were in a different setting. And our kind of three major components under a mental health model in public education are highlighted a lot of what we've already discussed tonight around social emotional learning, which is kind of that universal support for all students. And then special education assessment and services. So students who need mental health support to access education often receive special education services that include mental health. Roughly about 8% of our district students receive mental health services on an individualized education program. And then direct services also provide mental health services directly to our general education students. And then kind of the tip of the triangle, we in mental health and education often talk about 3 tiers. So that universal social emotional support is what all students receive. That special education and direct services can be kind of that next tier. And then the crisis services are kind of what we call tier 3, or that intensive intervention. And that focuses on students that have psychological safety concerns such as suicidal ideation, potentially a threat towards other students, or any kind of crisis response at an individual or at a school level. So that's kind of a summary at a high level of what our school mental health staff do on a daily basis. And then we thought, kind of grounding ourselves in equity, we wanted to talk about 3 goals we have as a mental health department this year. A lot of what Miguel mentioned in the Superintendent Student Advisory Council, when mental health has met with them, they've talked about mental health access needing to be available for all students, and more of our therapists or our mental health providers looking like them from a race perspective, and also speaking multiple languages. So we've gotten that feedback that we need to increase our mental health access, and then really looking at our staff of color and figuring out what are the factors that keep our staff of color in our mental health department satisfied in their work, motivated, invested in Cherry Creek. So a lot of work, an equity goal of ours is to keep that retention of our staff of color. And then really looking at data, both from our students and staff, on what equity goals are we achieving, looking at student outcomes so that our students of color are achieving, not just academically, but on a social emotional level. And Diana and Jay are going to get into some of the data that our students of color are sharing from a social emotional screener that we're rolling out in its 2nd year. So I'm going to hand it off on that note to talk more about the social emotional screeners. Diana.
Good evening, and thank you all for being here tonight. I get the opportunity to talk about my passion, which is social emotional learning. As many of you know, this year we expanded the project of social emotional learning screening as a universal way to get information in the voice of our students from 8 buildings in the district to 31. About half of our buildings participated. And up here you can see we talk about the core values, right? And then what we did is on this slide is just mapping the different topics our student gave us feedback on to those core values. So you can really see how those line up. Across in the fall, in our first administration, we had over 15,000 students give us their voice, K through 12, in those 31 schools in 7 topic areas for the 3rd through 12th graders. And then for the younger students, it's a teacher report on 5 topic areas. What we're really excited about is that 81% of our students gave us that feedback and information. Nationwide, 65 to 75% is more common. So your students and those of you that are students, thank you for sharing your voices. And you can see this is also an increase even over last year when we had far fewer schools participating in just our pilot. This next slide, I know it's a little bit small to see from your seats, but it basically gives the big overview. A year and a half ago, in the August of 2022, we began the process with community input, selecting a screener, entering into a relationship with an organization to support that, and completing our first screener in the spring of 2023. Then in the fall here, 2023, we had the 2nd administration, and both after that spring and in the fall, we've talked to buildings about how we can use this information then to serve and guide their services back to students. And then in our school year of 2024-25 next year, we're looking at being district-wide. We're really excited. The feedback from principals and educators across the district is that this is really critical information, and they're just really excited about hearing directly from our students how they're doing and what they need more of. You'll see on the bottom our first year goals, and then on the top is really kind of that expansion, or what we focused on this second year, which is, again, making it broader from the 8 initial schools to the 31, and building capacity of our school leaders. So that is often principals, positive behavior and intervention coaches, mental health providers, and teachers. So there's teams of leadership at each building. It's not just one person looking at this data. Building their capacity to look at this and respond in a meaningful way. And then identifying those strengths and areas of growth at each building. This slide overviews those 7 topic areas from our third through 12th grades. And that colorful wheel you see up in the corner, that's the 5 areas that the national organization CASL has outlined as the priorities for successful individuals. I mean, you'll all recognize them as the things that help your kids be great kids, help you as an adult be a better coworker. They're those relationship skills, social awareness, right? So those are the things towards others, self-awareness and self-management, those internal compass pieces, and responsible decision-making. So navigating the interface between both of those things. And the topics that are on the left-hand side are the specific topics that we, the constructs that were shared with us by Panorama and the survey that's created by them. And you can see the 2 that I starred, the supportive relationship and sense of belonging, being obviously some of our most high priority, or the area that we want to be ultimately focused on at all times, right, is our connection to our students. All of them being important, but those 2 really being the most important key. These next 2 slides are going to give you a view. This one is kind of the student view, and the next slide is going to be more of a staff view of the report and information. This just kind of give you the context of what 1 through 5 looks like. The students aren't circling 1 or 5. They're circling either less favorably on that left-hand side up to the highly favorable on the right-hand side, being 5s. And just for context, when we look at data and interpret it, I always want to remind folks that that middle ground, that somewhat, is more neutral, right? So it's not charged unfavorably or charged favorably. It's just kind of, right? Like high schoolers often. And then when we look at that percent favorable, the image you're looking at here is our 3rd through 5th graders. I know it's kind of small for you in the audience. From last year in the fall to this, from last spring to the fall, we went up 1% on their supportive relationship rating. That was a bigger number of students. In the spring of last year, it was only the 8 schools. And then in the fall, we had the 15,000 responding. And so that 89% is those 4s and 5s, the favorable. There's a kid saying, yeah, I'm connected at school, which is really thrilling to us. We want that to be 100%. But if you'll see on the bottom, that curve that you see that looks kind of, the curve is showing where that is nationally. We're at the high levels nationally, 89%, compared to national norms in those answers. To get into other results, to think about what does it look like after a principal in a building gets this information? What do they do with it? What are they asking? These are some of the questions that we were specifically asking. How will we define success at our school, responding to this information? What resources do we need? How are we going to make sure we share this information out? So all of those kinds of questions are what the coordinators, myself, present as the opportunity for dialogue when we go into the buildings looking at this data. And first of all, we look at the 3rd through 5th graders. The questions are a little bit simpler, language-wise, for our younger learners, and they are having great relationships. 89% of them report strong relationships. And again, for kind of the understanding between that middle bar and the right bar, those blue numbers and that graph is what percentage of students in CCSD gave a favorable answer, so 4 or 5. And then on the right-hand side, that's our comparison as a district to national norms of students the same age. So across 3rd through 5th, pretty strong overall. And supportive relationships, again, being our highest strength there. And we know that if we look towards the bottom, self-advocacy was one of the areas that was weaker or needing more growth across all grade levels. We know that if we work on that, and as we're growing that, that's going to help us with our academic achievement as well. Certainly that's social and emotional success is linked for all students, and that's a really correlative, a piece that's shown in correlation in research. For upper grade levels, the numbers are still pretty strong and trend similarly. You'll see the supportive relationships are a little bit lower, but still high according to national average. So 82% of students are giving a favorable response, and that's putting us in the middle according to the national norms. The second highest is that self-management, and we know that those students who have strong self-management are less likely to face failing grades. And we have students that are succeeding in that area. Interestingly, I know a lot of buildings, if you look at that bottom response area, the sense of belonging, again, this is where the context is important. We see that 41%, we're like, oh my goodness. Remember, up to 30% are kind of in that middle neutral ground. So that may mean we got about, and I can tell you from looking at the data, that's about where we land on this one. But again, that's to the right-hand side, you see that nationally we're below. We're only in the 19th percentile for this one. And the differentiation or kind of the nuance between supportive relationships and sense of belonging is that difference between, yeah, I could talk to an adult in my building, and yeah, I really sense I belong with my peers, all the folks in the building really see me for who I am and know what's important to me. So it's that deeper sense of belonging that we want to keep working on within all our buildings. These results are the youngest kids, so our K through 12. Because of their developmental and language levels, this information is given to us via teacher observation across the 5 content areas, or the 5 CASEL competencies. And again, we see emotional regulation is actually a stronger area for our students, and that self-regulation being one of the challenges. As a student who's left already was talking about challenges in the hallway, that's that self-management piece. And kudos to the staff that's been working on that over there. We know that educators across our district are working hard at this key indicator of relationships. It's why all of us come into the career. It's not just because we want to teach home economics or, I don't know, CTE, or mathematics. It's because we care about young people. And here we're seeing those results question by question. And I recognize that they're a little bit small at that distance. But you can see these are 3 questions about, do you have a family member at the top? Do you have a staff member in the school, teacher or somebody else? And then do you have a friend that you can trust? For our youngest learners, this is 93% are saying, yeah, I have a family member. And that's kudos to our families. We have strong families and communities. Our kids feel connected. And anecdotally, we know, recently I'll share a story that Steve kind of illustrated, because I think it's a really good one, is when we had the response to a crisis, knowing that kids can go home and have somebody they can trust is huge. And our students are connected to one another. And on this particular slide, we also see on that right side, this is a comparison between the spring and the fall. We went up across all 3 of those areas. This is the question by question breakdown for upper grade levels. And again, we see kind of a variation amongst the questions. But that lowest one is, do you have a teacher or other adult who you can completely be yourself around? 62%. So that's kind of the more that sense of belonging. That's a little bit lower. We'd like to raise that up. So we'll look specifically at how that's playing out in disproportionality. One of our district goals is to really address these areas where students, our black and brown students, are showing up, showing a different impact than our students that are white. And if you can see in this slide, we're talking about how that shows up as far as favorability. 6 out of the 7 areas were lower for our students in their self-report of what they felt where they're at with some of these skills and in their buildings across it for grades 3 through 5. And then in grades 6 through 12, similarly, they're not reporting the same level of strength. One highlight, and something we've talked about as teams when we look at this, is that for our students that are Black African American, they're reporting actually higher by 2% in emotional regulation. So that's something to celebrate and continue to scaffold. But it is concerning to us that on 4 out of the 7 topics, they're reporting lower. The last area there is our students who are identified as non-binary in PowerSchool. And they're telling us that their sense of belonging is significantly lower, and definitely an area where we need to continue to grow that connection and belongingness for them. Across grade levels, you can see what this is showing you is across time, the youngest grades on the top, all the way down to 12 on the bottom, and the 7 content areas. The green is where we see kind of a bump up, and then those reds are where it's a little bit lower than the average. So what we can see is as kids get older, their sense of connection is decreasing. Developmentally, that's not surprising, because as students are getting older, their job is to individuate. And but we also want to celebrate that bump up in 6th grade, where we see that there's an increase of connection. Potentially that's because of our efforts with 6th graders to specifically create belonging with like Web Cruise, which is a orientation program. Things we want to work on for this next year and moving forward is continuing to really communicate these results out to families. And principals across the district are sharing them with their stakeholders at evening meetings, as well as potentially in newsletters. And we want to continue to grow that. We also want to continue to give tools to families so they can partner with us across scaffolding all of these skills. We want to continue to look at how we're responding to this information with action planning, most importantly at the universal level, right? Because we want all students to be gaining these skills. And then for any particular students that are showing a need for growth in many areas, focusing on those students more directly in partnership with families. And then you'll see the other piece is just continuing to build adult responsiveness. We do have a tool called the Playbook, which is interventions that staff can access in response to the data currently, and we continue to grow that.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. We appreciate everyone's presence. I'm going to share with you some updates in the other areas of our mental health department. I'm excited to share about Hazel Health. We entered into a partnership with Hazel Health in December of 2022. And the rationale for this is recognizing the mental health crisis that exists both in Colorado and across the nation. So in searching for a provider, we found Hazel Health to be a strong partner in the work that they do because of the skills of their clinicians and the diversity of their clinicians. We also want to note some of the top referral reasons that our students express when seeking services from Hazel Health. And to be clear, parents and school staff can make referrals for Hazel Health. The top referral reasons range from anxiety, sadness, family concerns, peer relationships, and confidence. And I've included some top statistics. So since our partnership in December of 2022, we've had 900 plus referrals made. Of those referrals and students who are eligible to receive services, they have had 1,800 plus mental health visits. We know that 53 schools have utilized Hazel Health. And the program is typically 6 to 8 weeks. So when you look at those who have completed the program, we have about 86% of students completing. I'd also like to talk about our Colorado Department of Education K-5 Social Emotional Learning Grant. We received this grant in 2021. This was the result of legislation in the state of Colorado to seek ways to support social emotional learning for students in elementary schools. This grant will actually conclude in June of this year. The focus of the grant was to place full-time social emotional learning specialists in elementary schools to provide services at each of the 3 tiers that you see on the right. So the majority, as you see, is in the green tier, or tier 1, really focusing on second step social emotional learning curriculum. It's a universal curriculum and implementation. Then piloting the social emotional learning screener, which Diana described, and then utilizing trauma-informed practices. And I'll talk more about those trauma-informed practices in a moment. At tier 2, we think about regulation spaces, which are typically spaces in buildings where students can come to practice coping skills, re-regulate, and then re-enter the classroom successfully. We're thinking about those more intensive services that can be done for individual students and families, ranging from the psychological safety areas to maybe perhaps more intensive social support needs. Our 5 elementary schools participating in the program are Highline, Polton, Holly Hills, Holly Ridge, Village East Elementary, and Independence. I mentioned our trauma-informed work. So we work with Resilient Futures on the Kaiser Thriving Schools grant. And with that, we provide the HEARTS trauma-informed work, which is healthy environments addressing trauma in schools. I think I missed the R. But with that, we have partnered with them to provide trauma-informed, culturally responsive practice, racial healing, and staff engagement and well-being. So this intervention is really about providing the opportunities for teachers to become informed about trauma-informed work and thereby supporting their students in classrooms in gaining skills in social emotional learning and beyond. This last grant cycle, which is 2023 to 2026, CCSD is participating as an influencer district to spread best practices and deepen existing work within schools. So the other 2 school districts are Thompson and Boulder Valley. So we're really pleased to be a part of that process. This partners with 11 schools listed on the right-hand side, and our outcomes include greater understanding of trauma-informed principles, implementation of trauma-informed teaching strategies, increased feelings of safety and a connection for students. The Colorado Department of Health School Professional Grant is also a grant that we've had since 2017. In the current grant cycle, which started in 2021, we've been able to include 1 full-time FTE in every high school and at the adaptives, and provide feeder support to every middle school. The suspension reduction group is also available to middle school students. And I think what's most notable are the results that we see for the grant, and I have to put on my glasses. So we see an increase in students' knowledge about how to cope with difficult emotions, students' knowledge about how to reduce risk associated with substance use, students' identification of trusted adults, students' feelings of belongingness at school, and then finally we see a decrease in the frequency of substance use. And I'd like to finally share with you the services from our McKinney-Vento team. They are a dynamic team of individuals who work tirelessly to provide for these families who are eligible for McKinney-Vento services. And earlier, Director Gates described that service. Director Bates, my apologies. So in terms of noting the growth in this program, last year the team identified 954 students. As of this point in the year, it's 876 students. This year, they've also identified 58 unaccompanied homeless youth compared to 42 last year. We have seen tremendous growth in the services that we're providing. Admissions for McKinney-Vento students occur within an average of 2 days, and the vast majority are being enrolled within 1 day, which supports the meeting of the legal requirement of 48 hours or 2 business days. The enrollment process is more straightforward. The team has participated in welcome days for international families and provided a Thanksgiving meal program that provided 4,000 meals for district students. I'd also like to note that our McKinney-Vento team does an amazing amount of work with our newcomers, And although those newcomer families may not qualify for McKinney-Vento services, we do stress that our McKinney-Vento team has tremendous skill in both enrolling and supporting new families to this district.
Okay, so my turn to kind of shift the focus to student voice. So like Miguel mentioned, the Student Advisory Council for the Superintendent has met with us recently over the last couple of years and really focused, as long as I can kind of think back to their focus, it's really been around access. It's really been around making sure we have more prevention, not waiting for crises to kind of, happen for the mental health team and the crisis team to respond, but more of a strategic focus. So a lot of these bullet points that you can read on the slide, just look at earlier identification. That's why we brought in the social emotional learning screener, more support for increased mental health need, like Jay mentioned, the mental health crisis. So the Hazel partnership kind of came out of that. And we also had a mental health task force that I think we've spoken to the board about in the past that really looked at increasing community partnerships as well. So staff of color in the community that are mental health providers really required us to look strategically and creatively at using our Cherry Creek School Foundation. So I know the executive director, Jill Hendon, is in the audience. Thank you to her and the support of the foundation. For a lot of students that can't access care financially are now getting mental health treatment in our communities through our mental health resource program that is funded by our Cherry Creek Schools Foundation. So a lot of this is really coming directly out of student voice and out of that mental health task force. And I can say I feel confident to report back to the board that it feels different this year. I think our mental health services feel more strategic, like I mentioned, more preventative, and I think it's showing signs of success even at the crisis level, that we're seeing less students kind of in that crisis mode. I think because we are identifying them earlier. I think the screener is connecting our staff to students on a social emotional level that they wouldn't otherwise be able to identify. So I'm excited to see all this work kind of connecting and building upon each of those kind of tiers. Our mental health relief fund that I mentioned right now is serving 50 students who otherwise would not have access to mental health care. They're typically in-person, more intensive services than Hazel provides. So if you can kind of picture Hazel's our first step for kind of more traditional mental health needs, but once a student has more identified needs at an intensive level, maybe more intensive counseling, maybe more frequent, definitely need to see somebody in person, we would refer them to the resource program instead of Hazel Health. And each year we report out about our school-based therapists. We have now in the majority of our elementary schools an Aurora Mental Health school-based therapist or an All Health school-based therapist. We have one in all but 2 of our middle schools, and all of our high schools currently have a school-based therapist. So we're not satisfied until we reach the goal of having a school-based therapist in every building, but we have the far majority of our schools having a school-based therapist, which supports the student at a different level than our building level mental health staff can support just based on the different role. And then a strong partner that's built a partnership at a different level recently is Judy's House. Judy's House is a local nonprofit that supports grief and loss needs of our students. They've always, as long as I can remember, had a memorandum of understanding for our middle school students to do grief and loss groups. In the last 2 years now, we've piloted in several elementary schools. First in the area that Judy's House has partnered with the district to provide elementary grief and loss groups. And the outcomes and success so far, hope and signs are that we will continue to have that partnership, and at some point they'll be able to offer it to other districts after the work they've done in Cherry Creek. One of the main priority areas I mentioned on the first slide is special education services. 8% of our students across the district, like I mentioned, have mental health time on their IEPs. That equates to about almost 4,000 students have mental health time as part of their special education supports. And I won't read the last bullet point, but it requires our school-based mental health staff to be trained in 55 standardized assessments. And we look at race, language, culture when determining which assessment to provide. A brief update on our crisis response. Fortunately, this year, I know I'm not supposed to say that, we've had less crises. I do think it's because of more of our universal and targeted support that students are, like I mentioned, identified earlier and supported through more prevention and early intervention. But when it gets to that intensive level, we, for the first time this year, have a district crisis coordinator who does our training for suicide risk reviews, threat assessments, and oversees our district crisis response team. He has been very busy this year. The next slide talks a little bit about his effort. We've revamped our threat assessment process and our suicide risk review process, along with kind of our crisis team model to fit a typical practice or model that most districts use is for the threat assessment called the CSTAG. And for the suicide risk review, most districts use the Columbia suicide severity risk rating scale. So we've revamped both of our processes for threat assessments and suicide risk reviews to meet those two kind of national best practices. But that's required us to train 800 staff this year, including administration, deans, counselors, and mental health. As of early January, we reached that goal of training all 800 staff as a member of those teams. And all principals in the last 3 months have been trained on our district crisis response protocols. Kind of want to end on some of our efforts around retention and culture that I mentioned earlier. For the first time as long as we can track data for hiring staff of color, the mental health department is made up of 25% staff of color. That's the highest number we've seen in our department's history. And we're not committed just to hiring a large number of staff of color, but retaining staff of color. So our district leadership team is meeting with all staff, but really prioritizing conversations with our staff of color to make sure we understand what keeps them satisfied in their work, what keeps them motivated, and building a culture where they feel, to Diana's point earlier with students, a sense of belonging. That focus is needed for staff as well. And our mental health departments are really focused kind of on that same theme of building culture and connection. I think being a mental health provider through COVID and working in public education and mental health is a challenging job. So we're really trying to build a culture of connection and community so we don't see as much turnover as we have in the past. For example, a couple years ago, we lost 27 staff members to retirement or leaving the district. And this past year, that number dropped almost in half. But we'd like to see our numbers continue to decrease when it comes to staff leaving our team. And the last slides are really a thank you to the board and to our district leadership team. I often hear in my 5th year in the district a 3-2-1 model for mental health providers, 3 staff in high school, 2 in middle school, and 1 in elementary. Really with the support of the board and the district leadership team, it's not as catchy of a phrase or message, but it's more like a 5-3-2-ish model. Probably not something that's going to catch on, but we do have 5 full-time staff in high schools on our mental health team, 3 on average in our middle schools, and our average elementary school has now 2 full-time mental health staff. So thank you to the Board of Education and the district leadership team for supporting mental health and those staffing increases. And again, I think to my point earlier of seeing things connecting and coming together and keeping our students safer and more supported on a social, emotional, and a well-being level, I think a lot of it is the support that our department has received. So thanks again for that. These slides just look at our increases as more of a visual. So about a 10-year kind of trend of about 125 mental health staff roughly 9-10 years ago to about 180 mental health staff currently. And this represents our growth for our staff of color. that's our presentation for tonight. Any questions?
Thank you for that presentation. We'll start our questions with Director Bates.
Thank you. Thank you for this presentation. It's always amazing to hear the numbers on our mental health of our students. So I am happy to hear that 89% of our students are feeling connected. But I'm wondering, I'm looking at the 9 non-binary students as you reported, and they're only at 29% of having a supportive relationship or feeling their sense of belonging. How do we increase that? It concerns me because we know that in that category or group, that they have a higher suicide rate. So that number to me is concerning, and I worry about that. I guess it's probably more of a statement than a question, but.
Okay. I think the number one aspect that helps kids feel safe and belonging at school is being addressed by their name, and just being able to be who they believe themselves to be. And I know we're working on various pieces of practice around that. But at a basic level, it's those relationships, and affinity groups can also be really a protective factor for students when they have a place to connect with other students. I don't know, either of you want to add anything to that?
I would also add that I think some of the interventions that are occurring in high school and middle school are really working to address that sense of connectedness, and I'll particularly highlight sources of strength. I think our students, many of them are wise beyond their years in terms of what we need to be doing to support students.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I know it's a difficult situation to deal with, and I know kids. It's hard for kids to think about it. So one other question I have is, we often have parents or constituents who are saying the SEL screener is not good for kids. Why are we doing this for kids? I think we can see in some of this data where it is. What is your response to somebody who says it's not a good idea for kids to have the screener?
At the first level, I'd always say families have choice. So if a family believes that way, they have the freedom to opt their student out. And I would say we always want to hear our students' voice. And these are 5 areas of competency we know help students be more successful in the workforce. So if it's something you have a question about, you can go look at all the questions. We're not asking any mental health particular questions. It's really more about skills, social emotional skills of, when I'm feeling unsteady or high emotion, can I regulate myself? And I know where to seek out support when I'm not feeling steady. Some of the questions around self-efficacy are, I believe I can do the hardest thing that's in front of me. So giving our educators information about that and what we need to grow, I would suggest is an important thing, but we always honor families' choice in that regard as well.
Okay, thank you. And I guess I'll comment as a parent of 5 students who have gone through this district, and I appreciate the extra early detection that you are getting by using this screener. I appreciate it for our family that I wish we had it years ago. Let's say that, and I appreciate it for all the other kids because we never know what kids are going through, and so I just appreciate what you guys do. Thank you.
Thank you for those questions and comments. Director Egan.
Thank you for being here. It's good to see all of you again and hear this again. I appreciate you adding the equity piece as well. Good to see that. I remain concerned about the sense of belonging numbers, and I know I've mentioned this to you before, and I just think, I know that you're digging into that, but I wondered if you could talk a little bit more about that, the numbers between just the disparity between 3rd to 5th grade and then 6th to 12th grade.
Yeah, thank you for that comment and question. I would say it's concerning to us too. We've had conversations with the superintendent and the district leadership, the Superintendent Student Advisory Council as well, just about ideas around more connectedness and belonging in high schools primarily. I think one thing that we've tried to focus on is getting a sense from students the difference between when they say belonging amongst peers or amongst staff. I'm not sure if we've got a clear answer yet as to if students are seeing belonging as kind of a student connection around like activities or being, more of a participant in extracurriculars as an example. So I'd say we have to kind of do a root cause analysis of figuring out why belonging is harder for our secondary students to feel they can speak positively about than our elementary students. And really it's a trend, or it's a national normed answer. So you can't just say, well, that's typical for secondary students. They don't want that connectedness or belonging at the same level. We're seeing a negative trend more than other districts would. So I think we have to look at and just be curious first, what is the reason behind that? So we're going into schools, looking at the data with admin, with mental health, with counseling, and kind of asking that question, what do we see at the school level could increase that? But it's tying into our strategic plan. So under health and well-being, one of our primary goals in the strategic plan is to increase that 0 to 19th percentile to be 50th percentile nationally within 3 years. And we just need to determine what are the interventions or strategies at the school level that can get us so that we see different data in that 3-year span.
Also, just to that point, I wonder if you could address sources of strength in advisory and trusted adults in our high schools particularly.
Sure.
Yeah, so sources of strength is in all of our high schools, and one of the things that makes it such an effective program is that it's student run. Students decide what those campaigns look like and implement them with their peers. When we talk about advisory in many of our high schools, source of strength is helps create some of the campaigns that are delivered during advisory. And there's additionally also a task force of all the schools that's looking at what else can we layer into that time frame of students to build skills, because when you think about FaceTime, students have more FaceTime with a core content areas teacher than an advisory teacher. But what's unique about advisory in most of our schools is that students follow the one teacher. So it's important to build those relationships across all the adults that are interfacing with them.
Of course. So I think most people know my story, that in 2019, when I first ran for this seat, we experienced 7 suicides that year, and a couple of those were directly affected my 2 youngest children. Yes. So I just wanted to, again, acknowledge Dr. Poole for his work on Traverse, and thank all of our voters for that bond and budget in 2020, which was huge for that, and for your vision on that. And also Ms. Hendon, too, for your work with the foundation on supplying this. This is critical. And I just have to say, kudos to you and your team, and for district leadership for really leaning in and welcoming the student voice now and making sure that that's being heard. I think we've come a long way. I think we cannot rest on our laurels, but we've come a long way. And I'm really happy to see that. So I just wanted to say thank you to you for that. And then in terms of Judy's House, I would say also to our audience here that you can actually volunteer at Judy's House. And when I was involved with Boys Team Charity with 3 of my children, we would go and volunteer as well. It's a great partnership, so I encourage you also to check that out. But thank you. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Director Egan. Director Allen?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I'm sorry I got struck with COVID the first time that you presented in December at our study session. First time, I thought I was going to escape it for good, but no such luck. But I had the opportunity. I've heard you guys speak about mental health or your whole team, and I didn't need to be there to know that we are doing amazing things. And I thank you so much for all of this work, from gathering the data and figuring out what it means, making it accessible, and then making your decisions based on it. And the decisions are incredible. I recently, or a couple months ago, I was visiting the principal at Creekside, and she was so proud that every single staff member in her school was identified as a trusted adult by somebody. And that's not just teachers. That is the lunch lady, the bus assistant, every single person. And that is the true community school that I believe in. And you guys are making it accessible for what we're facing in 2024. So thank you. I can go on and on. I do, because we truly believe that you can't access education without making sure that our kids are okay, and you do that constantly, and I'm just so grateful. The couple of things that jumped out at me, there's 53 schools that are accessing Hazel Health. What about the outliers? What are they doing?
So thank you for that question. We are actively working with schools to both think about how students receive services at home, which is an option for them between the hours of 3 and 7 p.m. The greatest availability is in school. And so we're working with high schools and middle schools to address how they can expand coverage for Hazel Health appointments. I would say our elementary schools have taken off. They're doing a remarkable job of integrating the in-school appointments. So a lot of it is conversation and connection with staff around what would support them in providing those services logistically.
Well, I'm glad to hear the elementary schools are taking off, especially because they're so exhausted by the end of the day. Trying to get therapy and later in the day would be very challenging. And then, we are asking with our schools, asking them to share communications. Can you explain how that partnership looks? Because it's a lot different talking about mental health and asking schools to do that than what is traditionally expected of administrators and teachers. So I'd love to hear more about how you guys work together to convey the messages through the communication that you were talking about.
Want to take that?
I'm sorry, can you just clarify what kind of communications?
Well, you were talking about the work for next, I have notes on work for next year is going to be increased communication between schools and families.
Oh. With regards to screener?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Is that for Hazel? With regards to the screener, like, for example, one of the middle schools has me coming out next week to meet with their parent group to talk about the results and talk about what are activities they can do in the home. And that's one of the things we want to keep working on, and to have like a platform online that's accessible to families around what are the things you can do for any of these topic areas if, we share with you that the results are a need for growth in those areas. So, and that's actually something, literally this afternoon, we were talking about incorporating family voice into. So if there's anyone that's a community member that wants to share their voice in that, feel free to reach out to me directly.
That's great. I'm just glad you're taking an active role, because it's a lot to talk about mental health, like ask principals and teachers to talk about it without the proper terminology and understanding of the scope. So, yeah. And then one other question: when we look at the high schools and the drop and the sense of belonging, I saw Dr. Roberts at Grandview present this information at their school accountability meeting. And one of the things that jumped out at me, and I don't know if this has been looked at all, but we have really big high schools. And that's not necessarily true across the country, which you're also looking at. So while kids say, yes, I have a sense of belonging in my theater club or in my, sport or in my math class, is there any consideration for the size of the school, and do you think that impacts, like what's the question being asked, and does the size of the school have any impact on that?
That's a great question, and it's one that we've asked our partner, Panorama, to give us information, and some of our teams have actually looked at that, like nationwide by size. So it's something that we're continuing to drill down on and consider, because we are of the same mindset that that's potentially one of the factors. And we're not going to change the size of our schools. So how do we continue to build relationships within those? We also have the capacity to look at comparison between other like metro versus rural populations. So I think that's something, as we continue to look at data with each team, those are some of the comparisons we want to make. But first and foremost, we want that number high. So like even as we norm it, we want it to just be high, right? But those are data comparisons that we continue to expand the possibility for deepening the comparisons on.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions. Please continue the good hard work. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Allen. Director Knowles.
Thank you so much. For some reason, you all feel further away tonight than usual. First question, I was curious, is the SEL screener available in languages other than English?
Yes, it is. It's available in English and our other 9 top languages.
Okay.
And one of the developing availabilities is that it's also going to be read aloud for all students, not just with a Google Translate, but internally.
Got it. Thank you. And then I know over the last couple of years, there's been work to centralize the management of the mental health. It used to be maybe more like local within the schools, but now it's more centralized. I'm just curious how that's been going, where the hiring, comes through the district level initially, et cetera. And then you all kind of having your ongoing meetings and connecting with the mental health team district-wide.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for any principal, but I think we've really tried to find a hybrid model. So principals typically don't have the mental health background and don't understand the qualifications or maybe how to even recruit, because we're an extremely hard to fill position in the district. So we do the first tier of interviews, but we don't place a staff member or a new hire in a building without the principal and his or her team interviewing and making sure it's a good fit. So the feedback so far has been positive. It's allowing us to hire more quickly. We're actually hiring right now for next school year, because if we wait that much longer, and principals have plenty of other positions to hire for, so I think that kind of partnership has worked well. And then the second question was about our department meetings.
We're just basically what has been centralized, like with the hiring and how that's been going.
Yeah.
Okay. Any plan? I know the social emotional learning specialists are on a grant. Is there any plan to extend those positions and fund them some other way?
I mean, we're looking at ways to keep sustainability in place for those positions. I would say it's too early to know exactly what that would look like, but we've seen from qualitative and quantitative data from those 5 schools, it's not a position or a kind of focus we'd want to lose. So we're looking at ways to continue that position in some way, knowing that the grant funding will end.
Do you think you'll expand it as well beyond those schools?
I think there's a need for that kind of program across the district, especially in elementary. I don't know if we'll expand it as it is now, or if we'll look at like more of a shared position across multiple schools, because I think the funding to build that kind of position across 45 elementaries would be challenging. But the focus on prevention and social emotional learning and kind of guiding and teaching SEL more at the classroom level is something that we're seeing we don't want to lose or give up.
Okay. And then the school-based therapists with our partnerships in the community, do all kids qualify for that, or is that, I know sometimes it's been Medicaid or kids that are needing a certain kind of insurance to get that?
So most therapists in our schools from All Health and Aurora Mental Health are licensed, so then they can take whatever insurance that Aurora and All Health accept, which are most providers. If they're on Medicaid, that typically is acceptable as well. So we're not seeing a lot of barriers for students to access All Health or Aurora Mental Health. If that is the case, that's when we would refer them to the resource program through the Cherry Creek School Foundation. But it's typically not an issue to get students access through one of those partnerships.
Okay. And then last question I have is if you can talk about the welcome days for international families that you mentioned with the McKinney-Vento services.
So what I can share with you is that our McKinney-Vento team has been actively involved in those welcome days. And I will also share that I don't have the exact details of what occurs during those, so I would be happy to get that information to you.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate all the work that you all have done and just to help to educate me as a parent and just to normalize mental health. You know, again, I always say if you have a broken arm, you go get that fixed. So if your feelings or your brain are broken, I think it's important to take care of that as well. My question is directly related to our efforts to educate our families of color about mental health services. Because I can recall, I know Director Eakin mentioned when we had the campaign for our last bond, and that as I was going out to specific communities, I was told by members of those communities to de-emphasize the building of Traverse, or not to mention it at all, about our mental health services. And so do we have anything where we're specifically addressing that or addressing the stigma that exists in communities of color around mental health?
Do you want me to take it first? Okay. Thank you so much. That is an area that we find to be a priority and a very critical need. We recognize that therapy may not feel accessible to all families. And so what we are really focusing on is through our equity goals, thinking about increasing the access to things like Hazel and the Mental Health Relief Fund through communications with various communities and stakeholders. I would also say that we would welcome further conversation and suggestions about how we could do that work. I don't know if you want to say anything else.
And then also, yes, to the additional conversations, because again, I think that is just an ongoing thing. I think, again, as our country and we grapple with some of our historic issues, that a lot of times people of color had to show up with a stiff upper lip, more so than many other communities. And that is kind of carried on throughout generations. And so I think it is important to continue to engage those communities and to have those conversations about how we can show up for all kids and to normalize mental health. I did have an additional question about, let me see here. For the McKinney-Vento students, like how do we help to identify those who are maybe not obviously experiencing homelessness or things like that? What are some of the criteria that helps us to expand how we identify those families that need assistance? Sure.
Okay, great, thank you. So as I was saying, this is an area we're quite proud of. Within the team, we have the McKinney-Vento liaison, 2 educational support specialists, and then an individual who is placed in admissions. And that person has done amazing work to decrease the time of identification, as I said earlier. And then I would also say that our team is doing a great job with outreach. And for anyone who has seen the members of that team, they are always on the phone, always out in community, and are very creative with community partnerships, both for the purpose of identification and for providing much needed services to this population.
Well, I guess to that point, I know I had the opportunity to attend a workshop about how that's expanded in our community. And they brought to attention that that if you are maybe going through divorce, have to live in someone's basement, have to couch surf for a little bit with your kids, that is technically homelessness. And so how do we work to serve those people in our community who, again, may, put on a shiny face, but again, they're couch surfing or in the basement for a few months. And I know that's kind of a running joke with millennials and all those sorts of things, but yes, it did enlighten me that is a form of homelessness as well. And do we work with those families?
We certainly do. This is an area where the partnership with schools is essential. So one of the reasons that I am so pleased and honored to work with the McKinney-Vento team is that our district takes a very holistic approach, placing that team under the Office of Student Health. So they have direct connections with our mental health providers and our nurses. And so I think that really enables us to have our eyes to the ground and really thinking about how we can serve those families.
And then one final question. And looking at how you work with the different offices around the district, and just as I've been able to have conversations with Tony Poole's office in special populations, and being a person of a certain age, right, where, to be frank, back in the day, we just spanked kids, like it just was, And so how do you determine, what students' needs are, mental health, versus just shape up and get the work done? And so I know that's kind of a struggle that families may have in an intergenerational way. And even as parents, how do we determine, what's mental health and what's just, needs a little correction here and there?
Sure. Well, I'll start and then I'll pass it to Steve. I would say first and foremost, the ways that we're focusing on relationships and connection are critical. And so once we really know students and know what's perhaps contributing to their behaviors, it really gives us an ability to think holistically about how we serve them. So for me, I think that's a critical piece across all staff members, and I really appreciated the attention to the fact that McKinney-Vento families and sense of trust in adults are related to the people in buildings. And there's an attention to all people in buildings. It's not just teaching staff or mental health staff or nursing staff. It really is about that bus driver or lunch person that's helping kids eat and have sustenance. So I think that's really important. I'll pass it to Steve.
Yeah, I would just maybe briefly add that it's important for our mental health teams in buildings to do kind of, I was talking with Casey Ellis, for example, just this evening about kind of awareness around what mental health is and isn't, compared to like behavior or discipline or, a student having a bad day. And it can't just be the mental health teams in buildings that have that knowledge. So mental health first aid is something we're rolling out school-wide, so that teachers can understand the difference between a student having a bad day and a student who might show some signs of anxiety or depression or something more serious. And that same kind of support and parent education should be provided, not just to our staff in schools, but to our parent communities as well.
Thank you. That concludes my questions.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It is at this point in our meeting that we make time for members of the audience who have completed the online public comment form prior to 12 noon today to address the Board of Education. In order for everyone to be heard, please limit your comments to a maximum of 2 minutes. A buzzer will sound at the end of the 2 minutes, and the microphone and audio will be automatically muted. Each speaker may speak only once during public comment. Speaking time may not be shared between speakers. This is your opportunity to make comments to the Board of Education. In accordance with board policy, it is not a question and answer session. Please confine your comments to matters that are germane to the business of the district. Further, please recognize that students attend most of our meetings. Any speaker whose statements or behavior are unrelated to the business of the district, appear threatening or unsafe, or are inappropriate for K-12 students may be interrupted or warned and their opportunity for comment terminated. Audience members who speak are asked to do so in a respectful manner, and the audience is encouraged to listen respectfully. Any audience any speaker or audience member who disrupts the good order of the board meeting, including the speaking time of others, may be asked to leave. We are interested in your feedback and will listen on behalf of the board. I want to thank you in advance for your comments and taking time to come to tonight's meeting. Mr. Koenig, would you please call our speakers?
I'll call up 5 names at a time. Please line up in order behind the podium and remember to state your name at the beginning. Maureen Welch, Katie Lyon, Chelsea Wortham, Kristen Beam, Carrie O'Neill.
May I begin?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Maureen Welch, and thank you to the directors for your service and for all the staff here today. At today's study session, I learned a lot about critical impacts of upcoming legislation on school funding. And I understand that you all have a very heavy responsibility, as we do as a community. Unfortunately, I don't know what your thoughts were on House Bill 241168, the Equal Access to Public Meetings legislation, which would require public streaming of meetings such as this. Since you chose to do that in the darkness of a non-public executive session, I would have very much liked to have heard your opinions on that. It was disappointing. I did, however, get to listen to Tanya tonight and was very inspired. Our student speaker talked about engagement, equity, and growth mindset. Directors Egan and Garland, during our candidate forums, both said they supported the streaming of open meetings, public meetings. I pray that this body and the district, all their lawyers and lobbyists, listen to the wise words of Tanya, our student, and support equal access to public meetings such as this. We want to be engaged. We as a community want to participate. Please support Senate Bill 241168 and stream your public meetings. You don't have to wait for legislation to do that. Do it for Tanya, do it for our students, and do it for everyone in the community, because engagement means everyone. Thank you so much.
My name is Katie Lyon. As an Altitude parent since the school opened its doors in 2018, I would like to address concern with the proposed boundary scenarios. As the scenarios are causing large amounts of conflict and concern, my larger message is for us to think about more creativity in this situation. Altitude students have not only endured this disruption of COVID in the past few years, but have also already had one recent boundary revision occur. These two events caused a major disruption in their lives and their social and emotional development. So many of these students are just now experiencing the benefits of consistency and stability in their school lives, and we're threatening to disrupt that again. With this in mind, I'd like to propose that all current Altitude families are allowed to remain at the school, while new families, including kindergartners, are diverted to Woodland. This would move approximately 120 to 150 students in the next school year, making a drastic impact on the enrollment number. Future boundaries should still be chosen, and as current students move to middle school, new families will be enrolled. I understand this comes with logistical challenges, but I believe there are practical solutions that would allow us to put their development first. My family literally moved to South Shore from Serenity Ridge so our children could remain at Altitude, and I know others have made equally as committed decisions. Our children are finally enjoying a normal school experience. We owe them a creative solution. We owe them the chance to stay at the place they are calling home, while new families have yet to establish there. The thought of an existing student losing his or her home in Altitude after going through major disruptions already and finally hitting a wave of normal versus a new family moving to the area or kindergartner just doesn't match the standards that CCSD has set. Had this been the first boundary change, it would be different. However, this would be at least the third major change for many students in a few short years. Let's work together to protect our children. Details of a proposed plan have been given to Matt Schaefer and provided in your board packet. I appreciate your time and hope your consideration of this proposal.
Hi, good evening. Chelsea Wortham. I'm also speaking on the Altitude boundary changes. I'd like to make 2 points and then request one call to action. So the first point I'd like to make is that we're all on equal ground with the scenarios regarding an ethical standpoint and personal impact. Unfortunately, no matter what scenario is chosen, there's neighbors against neighbors, there's friends against friends, and we've been put in an unfortunate situation. So from that perspective, I move into my second point that we really need to move forward as objectively and with logic and reason driven by data to make this decision. So with that, I want to introduce a tool that I also emailed. I'm sure you can read it from your seats, but I did email this. It's a tool used in Lean Six Sigma when you have a complex situation that you're trying to get a problem solved with and have multiple potential solutions, all with pros and cons associated with them. What it does is it lays out the 3 scenarios and then the 10 guiding principles that you all have laid out. You select a rating of 1, 3, or 9, and there's reasoning behind that to make your selection pop. I can't get into that detail in 44 seconds, but there is reasoning behind those numbers. When you add up all those numbers together, you'll get a most logical solution and a least logical solution with that. So my ask and call to action is that each of you take 5 to 10 minutes to fill this out for yourself, see what solution that you get to, and make a decision from there. I appreciate that you have a tough choice to make, and no matter what choice you make, you're going to have an upset group of our community with you. So look forward to your decision next month. Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Kristen Beam. I'm here tonight to speak regarding the boundary changes proposed for Altitude and Woodland Elementary and to make a case why Scenario C is not a good option. The Long-Term Planning Committee has created 3 comparable scenarios to choose from, and they all reach the goal of reduced headcount at Altitude. The algorithm used shows a difference of only about 50 students between the scenarios for the 3 years in the future and beyond. My hope is that you make this decision based on the values that the school district promotes and do not get caught up in an equation with estimated inputs. Scenario C does not meet most of your advertised guidelines or values when examining school boundaries. The 8th, 9th, 10th, and 17th filings are the furthest away from Woodland and do not have a single continuous border with the current Woodland boundaries like scenarios A and B do. It's divided by the entire South Shore neighborhood, and these students would not live anywhere near anyone that they go to school with. It isolates them from existing relationships with friends and neighbors and is the exact opposite of trying to maintain a neighborhood school concept. The maps depicting the 3 scenarios are misleading, as the upper pocket of homes in Scenario C are not connected to the others in green. I urge you to come out and drive our neighborhood in person and see firsthand. There is an entire open space and a portion of Aurora Reservoir that separates this section of Scenario C from the other parts proposed. I've lived in South Shore for almost 13 years, and all 3 of my children have attended Altitude. My oldest was in 1st grade when Altitude opened, and we have been through every grade and multiple teachers in each grade. My youngest is only a 1st grader this year, but he has been in that school since he was a baby and has known the staff at Altitude his entire life. My children have built significant relationships with the staff over the last 6 years. These relationships have greatly enriched their elementary years, as these teachers know our family and trust has been formed. It is my recommendation to choose scenario A or B for the update.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Hi, my name is Carrie O'Neill. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I'm here to express my deep concerns and apprehension regarding the proposed schools redistricting plan. I appreciate the complex and challenging process that this requires and the careful consideration. However, it is my firm belief that Scenario C is not the best in the interest of our students or the community as a whole. After an exhaustive search, my husband and I built our house in South Shore so that our son Quinn could attend Altitude. Coming from Los Angeles, it was important for us that he have a safe community and a neighborhood that he had friends in, where he could walk to school or ride his bike. Scenario C does not allow for any of those things. One of the primary concerns with this proposed redistricting plan is the disruption caused to our students' educational experience. Transferring them from one school to another has significant repercussions on their social and emotional well-being. They have formed deep connections with classmates, teachers, and the school community, which are vital for their development and academic success. As the Scenario C boundaries are designed, there would be a Woodlands divide. This serves only to isolate only our kids and ostracize them from the relationships they've built with friends and faculty faculty that will continue to go to Altitude. As Kristen explained, filing 10, the Lake District is not connected to filing 11, where the boundary is broken. The majority of Quinn's classmates and friends live in filing 17, 2, 3, and 4 and are still slated for Altitude. The better option to be scenario B, which shows A or B, which shows continuous boundaries, keeping the kids in the same neighborhoods at the same schools, therefore preserving the sense of unity, community, and the impact on their educational, emotional, and social well-being. Altitude for us serves as a community center, fostering a sense of identity attachment within our neighborhood. Scenario C has the potential to disrupt our bond and community by reassigning students to different schools, potentially breaking existing social networks and relationship, losing out.
Thank you. Your time is up. Michael Wilkin, Lacey McMurdo, Harrison Williams, Samuel Zorns, Abby Connett. Please remember to state your name at the beginning.
Okay, sorry. Michael Wilkin. First off, thanks a lot to the board for giving concerned parents an opportunity to speak to you about the Altitude redistricting and their concerns. I'm here to pile on from the Lakes District on the concerns about C, so no on C. C would break off the most isolated and northern sections of South Shore and send them across the entire Altitude District to Woodlands. I particularly am concerned about this for my son. I see how much he depends on that sense of belonging he has in his community, and I think that, hearing what the importance in belonging that would impact him. It greatly isolates them from the majority of their classmates, and that's pretty obvious if you glance at the map. What the abstract map isn't clear about is the Lake District is surrounded by water on two sides, and the Altitude District on the other side if you were to go with Plan C. C also impacts some of the communities that have been enthusiastically donating and volunteering to Altitude since its beginning, and changing that with a map that breaks precedent with typical school boundaries would damage trust. There's a reason I suspect why elementary school districts typically have contiguous boundaries. That's a solid block. It's because schools depend on an engaged and cohesive neighborhood to invest in their success. It's also because complex fragmented nets lead to unintended impacts both in traffic and logistical expenses over time. So having people travel further will increase, not reduce traffic over time. Add this to the fact that school boundaries can and do change over time as a community grows in unpredictable spurts. With option C, you make a mess when that happens. There's nowhere to grow except for back to the other plans. I'm asking the board to please prioritize the kids and the community over short-term logistical theories. I recommend the board look at the proven results.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Lacey McMurdo. I'll also be speaking on behalf of the Altitude boundary changes. Many of the kids in scenarios B and C started building their community in diapers in the sandbox. These kids started cultivating their relationships well before they were old enough to go to school, and it's the only community many of them have ever known. Due to the layout of the neighborhood and the mature age of the homes in the area, both scenarios B and C span a much larger geographical area than scenario A, spreading the kids further apart. When I look at my son's community, it does not come from the kids on our street because, frankly, there's not a lot of kids on our street in the elementary age. His community is made up of the kids from Central South Shore. These are the kids we met at the playground, and these are the relationships that we have been building for the last 7 years. These kids together make community. These kids are lifelong besties. If you move the kids in scenarios B and C, you are not moving a herd, a pack, or a group of friends. You are plucking a couple kids off of each street and putting them in a new school without their friends. You are taking away their sense of safety within their community. Without a sense of security, these kids run the risk of regression in their academics and social skills. A once thriving student may not perform at his or her potential when feeling isolated and lack confidence without the support of friends. The homes in scenario A only began 3 years ago. As these families have moved in, they have started to build their own community, just as the older areas of South Shore have. These kids will travel together with their immediate neighbors to Woodland as a group supporting one another. These kids are not being ripped away from the only community they have ever known. Scenario A also provides the least initial impact to the students, as not all 150 students currently attend Altitude. In scenarios B and C, you are transitioning and impacting 150 students immediately. In scenario A, you are only transitioning about half of the number of the students in the initial transfer. The remaining students would be again at Woodland and would not have the impact of transition at all. All the scenarios move approximately the same number of students and reach the same long-term goal. It is my hope that the board will value the direct impact of the students at a higher level than the inconveniences to parents having to drive an extra 3 minutes to the...
Thank you. Your time is up.
Hello, my name is Harrison Williams. I'm here to talk about the altitude redistricting as well. I want to make a case for scenario C. My family and I just moved in an area in South Shore last year, and my son is a kindergartner at altitude right now. And I just want to share a couple of stories that have affected our personal selves over this period. So, as any 4-year-old is kind of scared of new transition, when he went from a preschool to the kindergarten, he was extremely nervous that his whole world was going to change. When we moved into the school or into the neighborhood, the school is right outside of his window. He can see it from his window. He can see our house from the school, and we drive by it every single day. So that ability for him to have that proximity to the school was extremely comforting for him and allowed him to very easily transition from a different school into this one. And when we drive, if one of the scenarios where we have to drive to Woodland gets selected, as we're driving past that school and going to Woodland, he's probably going to ask, how come I can't go to the school that is right outside my window in walking distance? And I won't have an answer for him. I don't really understand. The next thing about driving is the traffic Scenario C is the only one that will allow all of the students who can easily walk to altitude to walk there. And my son is one of those. My wife was walking my son to school, and after she dropped him off, she was walking across the crosswalk in front of the school, and she was struck by a car and broke her wrist. If we don't select scenario C, it is going to increase traffic from people who walk to altitude. And in my case, my wife would drive past Altitude Elementary School and also cause traffic at Woodland. So it would be doubling traffic where otherwise there would be none. And so for me, it is a safety concern as well. Thank you for your time.
My name is Sam Zorns, and it has recently come to my attention that there are several books in the CCSD library that contain explicit imagery. In reference to this matter, I would like to point out that in Colorado, it is illegal for adults to provide anyone under 18 with obscene material. It is a Class 6 felony, which, by the way, is the same class as the possession of weapons on school, college, or university grounds. It can result in 18 months behind bars, $100,000 in fines, and the requirement to register as a sex offender. In fact, the Cherry Creek District's own policies require that instructional materials meet the highest possible standards of professional ethics, good taste, and common sense. They also state that materials containing explicit adult or sexual content may be removed. Despite this, the district's school libraries provide minors with these materials that violate both its own standards and Colorado law. This content is not healthy, it's not safe, nor is it legal in Colorado. It does not strengthen the mental, physical, emotional, or social needs of the readers like the CCSD vision claims they strive for. So, if you're concerned about protecting your students by prohibiting weapons, concern yourself with their mental, emotional, and social well-being, and protect them from equally concerning material that is being provided in your school library. Thank you for your time, and I trust you'll make the right decision.
Hi there, my name is Abby Conant, and I'm here to speak to the proposed altitude boundary changes. I currently have a second grader who attends Altitude Elementary. I'm here representing Scenario A and our over 90% occupancy rate. I won't speak more to the inaccuracies around occupancy and tenure in the neighborhood and the school, as they are not part of the guiding principles driving the boundary change. Instead, I'll focus on 3 guiding principles that best illustrate why Scenario A is not the best choice. Minimizing busing and maximizing student walk-ins, ensuring efficient and mindful use of taxpayer investments, and lastly, maintaining neighborhood school concept. Scenario A largely consists of people who walk to school daily. Our home is 0.7 miles from the school. We walk most days. Some homes in Scenario A share a property line with the school. If Scenario A is selected, families will no longer be able to walk. Due to the entrance and exit points of Scenario A, we would need to drive right in front of Altitude to get to Woodland. In an area that's already congested, this scenario would create more traffic. The majority of Scenario C is already along a bus route to Altitude. By selecting Scenario C, this would allow for optimization of bus routes, where all busing students in South Shore would be bused to only one school, Woodland. If Scenario A were to be selected, it would require a secondary bus route, drivers, and funding. This additional expense would not be the most efficient use of taxpayer funds. The main focus of the committee and the board should be to keep walking students walking. Walking families that meet up with neighbors along the way builds and nurtures the neighborhood school concept and feel. I recognize that there are no easy answer here. However, when focusing on the guiding principles, Scenario C is in the best interest of the community at large. It keeps walking students walking. It most efficiently uses our bus routes and taxpayer funds. And based on a...
Thank you. Your time is up. Lori Christensen, Jacqueline Landbridge, Barbara Filner, Vishwashman Junath, and Sarah Hutt.
Hello, my name is Lori Christensen. I'm here to speak about the altitude boundary changes as well. Thank you for your service to the community and to the school district, Cherry Creek, those board members that are serving. As I know, it is a very difficult decision you have to make, and I urge you to use the 10 guiding principles to make the decision in a fair and equitable manner. Tenure at altitude or in the community should not be a deciding factor when making the decision, as some families have lived in the newest section of South Shore for 2 to 3 years as well. Additionally, my realtor has shared with me that there is an 11% turnover rate throughout the neighborhood in this past year. Currently, there are 340 houses of the 416 in the Meade District that are occupied already, with many more that are going to be sold in the next month or so. Mr. Slike also added in the fall PTCO meeting that only 0.4% of the 0.4 children come from every household. So that would only be about 30 more children if you do the math that are coming from that Meade district. So most are already at altitude. One thing to also consider is that families in this area have just been uprooted their children to move to altitude. If scenario A were chosen, these children would experience another change in school, which would affect their continuity of education once again. I also want the Board of Education to take into consideration the needs of students with IEPs from all areas of the neighborhood. Neurodiverse students that have conditions such as autism and ADHD and other social emotional delays need stability, routine, and familiarity with their peers and should not be moved to Woodlands regardless of location of their house. The social emotional impact that move like this would have on a student with a specific diagnosis such as those mentioned should be considered. And these children have already had many challenges related to forming friendships and bonds with other children and adults.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jackie Landridge. Thank you for taking the time to hear my comments. I am also speaking about the altitude boundary change. I do want to start with saying it's an honor to be among this board. You're a great example to our daughters. Thank you for that. I have 3 kids. My youngest one is in second grade. He would be impacted if scenario A was selected. We moved to this area largely for the schools. It was a big disruption. We moved him a little over a year ago during the winter break of the 2022-2023 school year. We made that choice to get the disruption over with, to get him stabilized, to get him ingratiated or embedded into the community. We've heard some unfortunate feedback and rumors that have been circulating our community that those in the newer builds are not necessarily embedded in the community in the same way. And we've really fought to be part of the community, attend the events, and make our kids feel like they're of equal standing with kids who have been there for much longer. So we wanted to share our personal story with you so that way you can be aware that everybody anybody would be impacted from any of the different areas. Knowing there's equal emotional impacts, I'd like to move to a more pragmatic view. We live about half a mile from the school. The kids walk home quite often along with others from the neighborhood. And just to reiterate the points that if they're not walking, we'll be driving past the school, funding for buses, and the other reasons that you've already heard. Thank you for your time. Best of luck with a very tough decision.
I'm a resident and a parent in this district. We pay the teachers and the administration and the board members with our taxes. Your duties require you to have a steadfast commitment for every student to receive a stellar education. For months, parents have been requesting change in many areas which focus on transparency, accountability, and communication with partnership with the students' families. We urgently request for you to not just listen to us, but have action in 3 areas, though there are more to cover. The first one is pornographic books are still in the libraries, and why? Why is the question? Your children or grandchildren are in this district. Do you want them to read about sex acts and scenes of violence and sex, graphic instructions on how to experiment? These are books you've approved. Books like the book, This Book is Gay, detailing explicit descriptions about ways to have sex, and more. Genderqueer, Fun Home are 2 of many books with pornographic images. These are in Eagle Crest Library and through the district. This is inexcusable. Number 2, the district has 53,000 students that are not meeting grade level on tests. Reading proficiency is at 58%, math proficiency at 40%. Your website talks about excellence in CCSD. These results are pathetic. Much of this concentrated learning loss is because teachers are having to teach subjects that should be designated to families instead of subjects the state of Colorado designates for graduation. Parents, taxpayers.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Thank you for the opportunity, board members. My name is Vishwas, and I'm here to talk about the altitude boundary issue. So while I totally understand that all of you are in a fix with this and the difficulty that you all are facing, considering the options that we currently have, I'm here to put forth my request that scenario A makes least sense, while scenario Z makes more sense. I really hope that the weightage is given to the guidelines that the board has published, because while the emotion is the same for all the scenarios, when you look at it from a logic, data, or reasoning point of view, you will see that scenario A makes least sense, while scenario C makes more sense, whether it be traffic, safety of the elementary kids, cost efficiency, or any of them. So one of the things that I want to mention is most of us sacrificed a lot to get into the houses that's bordering altitude. All our houses borders altitude. We have like 10 to 15 families with an average of 1 to 2 kids who all go to altitude, who all are in elementary right now. So if scenario A is chosen, all of us would be affected, and the whole purpose of moving to altitude would be affected as well. And as much as I wish that all of us could go to altitude by increasing its capacity, but since there is not an option that is given to us, I request that scenario A be not chosen and scenario C be chosen. With the main point, keeping in mind that the kids who continue to walk, kids are currently walking, continue to walk, and the kids who are currently busing to the school spend 1 or 2 minutes extra to bus. And you will see that scenario C affects the South Shore the most, while scenario A least affects South Shore as a whole. So that is my request. And one last point I would make is so sorry, my voice is kind of messed up. If there is an option to increase the capacity of Altitude.
I'm sorry, your time is up.
Hello, my name is Sarah Hutt, and I'm also here in regard to the altitude boundary. When the boundary scenarios were provided, I reached out to 5 friends who not within South Shore, 3 within Cherry Creek School District at different elementary schools, and 2 out of state. I didn't provide my scenario, but the reasons provided by the district for each scenario. They all chose option C from a traffic, location, and busing perspective. Not all students are new, and some have went since the beginning and have moved from within South Shore and from outside of South Shore into scenario A. I, as Katie had mentioned, too, have moved from Serenity Ridge so that my kids could continue their elementary education at altitude. When questioning families, why families don't want to leave altitude, ask the teachers at altitude if they would be willing to volunteer to move schools. I'm sure you'll be hard pressed to find volunteers. This is not an easy decision for the board. It is not easy for any of us as parents or our children. So I hope that you take everybody's information tonight into consideration in regard to making your decisions, but please take into consideration that section scenario A, with our kids being able to walk to school, with them have already built relationships because they're coming from different areas of the neighborhood to continue their education there, that you would not choose scenario A. Thank you.
Meredith Motley, Tommy Bryan, Krista Coriel, Galia Spychalstaka, sorry about that, Melinda Ronaldo.
I'm Meredith Motley with Colorado Skies Academy. I'm an administrator there. And since no one in front of me, including the superintendent, deigned to visit our school before you felt that you were able to vote on our survival, I thought I would share with you some interesting statistics. Our racial demographics, we have 63% white students, 10% black, 18% Hispanic, 12% multiracial, and other. District demographics, 45% of our students come from within Cherry Creek. We are not stealing from these other middle schools. 35% come from Douglas County, 7% Adams County, 7% Littleton, and 6% from other districts in the state. 41% of our learners are exceptional learners. 26% of them are on IEPs, which is my understanding is double the district average. 8% are on 504s, 7% are on ALPs. On the CMAS test, we've had an average participation of 84% compared to the district's participation of 73% and the state's of 88%. 47% of our learners meet or exceed expectations in ELA, compared to 49% with the district and 43% with the state. 25% meet or exceed expectations in math, compared to 40% with the district and 31% with the state. Now, we acknowledge that our math has been low in the past, but we have found better curriculum and implemented universal interventions using Zern provided by the CDE. We also followed nationally normed MAP achievement testing. Our median data is in the 44th percentile. Now, please keep in mind, 30% of our students are on learning plans, and yet 44th percentile for 6th grade, 43rd percentile for 7th grade, and 50th percentile for 8th grade. I would think for a charter school to meet a gap, maybe you should support them instead of be hostile.
Tommy Bryan, I wish to address the Colorado Skies Academy agenda item. Your action item tonight states that CSA failed to comply with paragraph 1.2, section C, regarding CSA board member makeup. The contract language actually states that parents of students enrolled at CSA at the time that the parent joins the board count toward the requirement of board majority by parents. And parents can complete their current term even if their student matriculates away from CSA. CSA has always operated under this understanding, and CSA has never been notified by the district that the district created its own definition of the term matriculate. Like you, parents serve on the CSA board as volunteers. There's nothing CSA can do to force parents to serve in that capacity. We are grateful, however, for the parents and industry professionals who do serve in this capacity, and we're disappointed that you would seek to minimize and belittle their service based upon your actions tonight. Your action item tonight also refers to a lack of continuity at the leadership level of CSA. Again, this is incorrect. Ms. Motley has served as CSA's Director of Aerospace and Data since 2022 and has been with the district since 2020. Additionally, Ms. Coriel has served as the school director and previously served as the school's board chair for 4 years and has been involved with the school leadership since its inception. To say there is concerning turnover in leadership at CSA is misinformed. And quite honestly, it's a slight to Ms. Motley and Ms. Coriel and their countless hours of dedicated service to CSA and the Cherry Creek community. I'll end by asking a rhetorical question of each of you, including Mr. Smith and his staff. How many of you have actually stepped foot inside of CSA? One. If I were giving you a grade, that would be an F. I think it's unconscionable and quite honestly unethical that you would take action against a school that you haven't even stepped foot in. To me, that's not dedication to excellence. To me, that's laziness. It's mismanagement on your part.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Good evening. My name is Krista Coriel, and I'm going to make public comment on your upcoming action item regarding Colorado Skies Academy. Your action item states that CSA failed to meet enrollment projections for the 23-24 school year. CCSD gave a one-year extension in 2023, which is seemingly a death sentence for a charter school, since it is difficult for teachers to commit when they believe there's little job security, with the chance that the school may close. It also provides problems in recruiting students, since families are concerned the school might not be there after 1 year. And CSA received direct feedback from families that declined their acceptance letters, stating that they weren't coming to the school because there was no assurance that their children would be able to complete all their middle school years at CSA. The data shows that in years past, most of the school's intent to enroll candidates converted to funded seat count. However, when the charter extension was given for only 1 year, the conversion rate dropped from an average of 92% in the first 3 years to 46% in the current year. Your action item also refers to a failure to provide a robust plan to recruit females. As reviewed with you on January 26th, there is a focused effort to recruit females to CSA by attending activities sponsored by female-focused organizations such as Girls in STEM, Girl Scouts, Women in Aviation, and more. We also have a board member with 36 years in the industry who is using her firsthand knowledge and experience of being such a significant gender minority to create a transformative space for girls and women who want to excel and be role models in these sectors. CSA has increased the percentage of girls year to year by 11%, from roughly 15% to 26% in the 23-24 school year. For reference, the percentage of females enrolled in CCIC's Aerospace Manufacturing and Drone program is currently 8%, and the industry average is roughly 7%.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Hi, my name is Galia Spachelska. I'm a registered nurse. I'm a family nurse practitioner of over 25 years of experience. I have a postmaster's in ABA. I am a fierce family advocate and an owner of Colorado Pediatric Health Associates. And I do a lot of advocacy at the Capitol for children with disabilities, but especially in reference to private duty nursing, and I've been doing that for many, many years. Both of my sons are differently abled. The last time I was here was 6 years ago when Cherry Creek School District refused to provide a one-on-one registered nurse in order for him to access school and to be able to go to school. And I'm here to tell you that I won my CDE ruling 5 years ago, and my son goes to school for 2-3 hours a day. I'm here to be a voice for the many families within Cherry Creek School District that have been denied going to school since September of 2023 without their nurses. They cannot go to school without their nurses. These are the most medically complex and medically fragile child. They need their nurses to go to school, and I can tell you it's a systemic problem. Our families have to sue the school districts at this point. There is no other way unless Governor Polis can intervene with some kind of an executive order, because it's a huge system problem. Sorry. I'm here to be a voice for all the families and all the children. My son literally cries when he can't go to school. That's their only way to access any learning and to be with other kids. They deserve to be able to go to school, and they haven't gone to school since September of 2023. And our families are really, really suffering. And I thank you for your time.
I appreciate that I've been able to attend this board meeting and see some of what you're doing with SEL and see that that's your desire to address mental illness. Before anything, I'd like to just offer up prayer because I think prayer is important in helping our kids and our families. So, Lord, I pray your blessing and your wisdom over the Cherry Creek School District, but more importantly, I pray that you protect the hearts, the minds, and the lives of our students. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. I came here to comment on charter schools. My children came from a charter school. There was a lot of community there. So it was concerning when the response to making schools smaller was like, no, we won't even consider that. Charter schools build a lot of community, and there's a big sense of belonging. But one of the best benefits to a charter school is the parent involvement and engagement. And if Cherry Creek doesn't start involving the parents more, not just tolerating us, but actually listening to us and involving us and hearing our voices, you're going to lose more and more people from your district. I suggest that you look at the charter school model. I appreciated the...
Thank you. Your time is up. Tim Waddingham, Laura Nelson, Tara Larson, Steve McKenna.
Thank you. Tim Waddingham. I'm here to discuss the altitude woodland boundary. I'm here to suggest that scenario C is not the best, and A or B would be better for a couple of reasons. One, location. There's been a mention of scenario A being close to altitude. That's true. Scenario A is also the closest to woodland. Scenario B is also close to woodland. Scenario C is by far the farthest from woodland. I understand that kids often walk to school, and by the way, kids walk to school from scenario C as well. And I believe that kids from A, B, or C will continue to walk to school regardless of which of these scenarios goes to woodland. And it would be very unfortunate to have kids from C walk all that distance to the school over in Blackstone. The second point I would like to make is about longevity. So we moved to South Shore 5 years ago, and we picked our neighborhood and our house for the reason of altitude school itself. We've been there for 5-6 years now. Others in scenarios B and C have been there even longer, up to 12 years. And I don't mean to suggest that A should be chosen, but in terms of longevity, they don't have as long of a tenure, and therefore have not paid as much taxes or have as much input to the school's history over the last couple of years. And then finally, the scenario that or the item that the group likes to suggest that C should be chosen for is because of the busing. Some of the facts don't support that. Only about 30% of the children in scenario C currently bus. I don't imagine that would go up at all. A lot of these kids still walk, still ride bikes. Parents certainly drive them to school too. And then lastly, I'll say that any of the scenarios that are chosen will all drive past altitude. So, to suggest that A will go by altitude and B will go by altitude and be very sad, that's true, but so would C. So I wouldn't think that's a differentiator. Thank you.
Thank you, board members, for allowing me to speak this evening. I am here to ask that you consider not renewing the Colorado Skies Academy charter. Based on our experience at CSA, which is not an isolated incident, administration allows teachers to retaliate and bully students. I do not have enough time to go through every single occurrence that have happened at the hand of Ms. Suba. However, I would like to start by telling you that before my daughter's troubles started, science was my daughter's favorite subject. She left CSA with a D in science and an F in math, which are the subjects that Ms. Suba teaches. Currently, she is at Laredo with a B average again and is happy that Mr. Stewart and his amazing staff were beyond helpful in stepping up and allowing my daughter to feel safe at school again. When I brought my concerns to Mrs. Coriel and the CSA Board of Directors, I was ignored and lied to. The entire situation started last year when my daughter was struggling to understand Ms. Suba during her lessons. We had a meeting with Ms. Dutton and all parties included. Ms. Suba took offense that my daughter requested she slow down because her accent could be a little difficult to understand. The retaliation my daughter received became so bad that Ms. Dutton pulled my daughter from Ms. Suba's class and placed her in independent study with Ms. Uta. The decision wasn't made lightly, but because Ms. Suba was retaliating by giving my daughter lower grades that she should have been earning, amongst other things which I do not have the time to list right now, we ultimately decided it was best for my daughter to be removed from her class. When I brought my concerns to Mrs. Coriel attention at the beginning of the school year, she informed me that Ms. Suba was ready to put all this behind her and move forward. When the retaliation continued, we were told that there was no place for my daughter to have independent study and that we would have to.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Hello, my name is Tara Larson. Thank you for having me here to speak about my family's experience with Colorado Skies Academy. My daughter had been a student at CSA from 6th through 8th grade. Unfortunately, we started to experience problems last year when a different teacher took over her science class. My husband and I reached out to her for clarification on an assignment, and immediately after that, our daughter became a target. This teacher publicly used her as an example to tell the class that they were not allowed to complain about her or tell their parents what was happening in her classroom. She also told my daughter that the reason she didn't understand the assignments was because she lacked intelligence. Despite my fears that my daughter would be retaliated against, I met with both directors in October to express my concerns. They reacted with shock and told me this was the first time they had received a complaint. Later, after speaking with other parents, I discovered that this was not true. The school was well aware of problems that other families had with this teacher. The situation escalated later that day at my daughter's science presentation when the same teacher became combative after I tried to speak with her about the assignment. I met with one of the directors again who refused to address the teacher's behavior. At that point, my husband and I felt that our daughter was no longer safe at CSA, and we decided to withdraw her. I later spoke with a school district official who encouraged me to reach out to the CSA Board of Directors. I wrote 2 detailed emails that were sent to every member of the board. I did not receive a single response. I cannot begin to convey the negative impact that CSA's treatment has had on my daughter. Not only was she intentionally mistreated by a teacher, but the school's administration and board refused to even acknowledge it. While I was very hesitant to come here and speak to you today, I feel that it was my responsibility to prevent another child and family from having to go through what mine did. Thank you very much for your time.
Good evening. My name's Steve McKenna. I'm with Grandparents for Kids, and thank you for letting me speak tonight. Although I do sometimes wonder what the point is when you never seem to address what people say at the public comments of these meetings. I and many others have asked for these meetings to be live streamed, as they were during COVID, for quite some time, and yet the board refuses to respond to this reasonable request. Like the first speaker, I would like to know what was discussed in the study session on House Bill 1039, and I would encourage the board to support it and to live stream before its July deadline. At the November and December meetings, many parents expressed concerns with the principal of Red Hawk Ridge Elementary. I've heard nothing about that since either. This is not what the community expects as far as transparency from the board and the superintendent. I also want to say tonight that I think much of what you are doing does not appear to be working. I encourage parents to look at the comprehensive literacy plan that highly paid administrators spent 2 years working on. It is full of bureaucratic buzzwords and requirements that I believe are just going to make the teacher's job that much harder. Perhaps one of the reasons most Cherry Creek kids can't read or write at grade level is our school's overwhelming focus on equity, hate, and transgenderism. In addition to the CLP, which is full of these buzzwords, our district administers the Healthy Kids Colorado survey to middle schoolers, ages 10 to 14. The survey initially asks for their grade and age, which is fine, but the third question asks for the child's gender identity. These are 10-year-olds. They can answer male, female, non-binary, fill in the blank, or I don't know. They also ask what best describe you, heterosexual, gay.
Thank you. Your time is up. President Garland, that's all for tonight.
Thank you for those comments. Can I have a motion to consider Resolution 24.2.1 as an action item?
I move to approve Resolution 24.2.1, approval of 5-year renewal of charter school contract with Heritage Heights Academy.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a discussion?
I do have some discussion for the Heritage Heights Academy approval.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Heritage Heights Academy, often referred to as HHA, has demonstrated commendable financial stability, receiving no material concerns from our Office of Fiscal Services. Their investment in facilities, including a redesigned parking lot, playground, and expanded classrooms, have contributed to a significant enrollment increase to 504 students. Academically, HHA consistently meets or exceeds our district standards, reflecting their commitment to student success. While governance concerns have been noted regarding compliance with open meeting laws, HHA has shown a proactive approach in addressing these issues. HHA's partnership with our district ensures that students with special needs receive necessary services and that English language learners receive adequate support, showing HHA's commitment to an accessible education. Given these achievements and ongoing efforts, I think that renewing HHA's contract is in the best interest of the students it serves in our Cherry Creek School District. Thank you for your consideration.
Are there any additional comments regarding the renewal of Heritage Heights Academy? Okay, can I have a roll call on the resolution, please?
Directors Allen.
Aye.
Bates.
Aye.
Egan.
Aye.
Garland.
Aye.
Knowles.
Aye.
Motion carries. I would like to call for a motion to approve Resolution 24.2.2, the denial of further extension of the Colorado Skies Academy Charter School, the non-renewal.
I move to approve Resolution number 24.2.2, denial of further extension of the Colorado Skies Academy Charter School contract non-renewal.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a discussion? Excuse me.
Yes, thank you. We have real concerns about Colorado Skies Academy, particularly around their financial performance and budget. The numbers are much the same as last year, and we're concerned the school won't even be financially viable through the end of this school year. Recruitment numbers continue to decline, and without adding a significant number of new students or a large financial donation, the school will run out of cash. There is no current plan to meet financial obligations, including any balloon payments required to meet bond obligations. Thank you.
Are there any additional comments? Roll call, please.
Directors Allen?
Aye.
Bates?
Aye.
Egan?
Aye.
Garland?
Aye.
Knowles?
Aye.
I would like to call for a motion to approve the consent agenda, resolutions 24.2.3 through 24.2.8.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Allen?
Aye.
Bates?
Aye.
Egan?
Aye.
Garland?
Aye.
Knowles?
Aye.
Motion carries. Our next regular board meeting will be held on March 11, 2024 at Sky Vista Middle School, 4500 South Himalaya Street in Aurora, Colorado, 80015. I would like to call for a motion to adjourn the February 12, 2024 meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Directors Allen?
Aye.
Bates?
Aye.
Egan? Garland?
Aye.
Knowles?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, and have a safe evening.